Hello, everybody, and welcome into my latest live broadcast. Today is Friday. It's January the 20th, 2023. I'm your host, Kerry Holzman, and happy early New Year, Chinese New Year, which is Sunday, January 22nd, for all of the folks in China that watch us, which I think there are 3. So that's a significant portion of their population. Or 4 the Chinese folks living around the world. So for that matter, today what I have in store for you is the folks over at AceMagician have sent me their latest mini PC to review. As you can see, I've left it completely shrink wrapped. I haven't done anything with it, so we can have a true unboxing experience. And rather than do rehearsals or scripting or, a ton of research, I'd like to have a real experience that we can share together. It's the closest way I can think of to give you the experience virtually, as though you've done this yourself. And a shout out and a thank you to everybody who has contributed prior to the broadcast, which includes Brad3514 with a $10 super chat contribution. Frankie B contributes $19.99 via super chat. Frankie says, "Hey, Kerry and chat, here's my fee for not being able to watch today. I'm at work." Well, very kind of you, Frankie. Thank you. And there's our good friend Buster. Peter Laycock with a 20-pound contribution. Says, "Good evening, Kerry and everyone in the chat. All the best from Bonnie, Scotland, where the temperature in Edinburgh is 27 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 3 degrees Celsius." Always good to see you, Buster. Thank you so much. And for the PayPal contribution as well. Speaking of which, a shout out to Avery Ramsdorf, who sent an Amazon gift card yesterday after the show. Thank you for all your support, guys. You're making these videos possible. Well, rather, you're making more of these videos possible. It's through your contributions and support that I'm able to buy equipment needed to be the subject of most of the videos. And today's a rare exception where a company has sent me their product. They're not paying me anything, but they've sent me the product, the folks over at AceMagician, to introduce it to you, to make that introduction. So we're going to do that today. Planet Cryos with a $5 contribution says, the hot dog build asked me to pay up. Happy Friday. The hot dog builds I've sent out, if you're not familiar with that term, it's generally a computer case that looks really nice, but when you see how it's made, it's just junk. You don't want to know how it's made. So, you see a computer and you're like, wow, that's a very cool looking computer. Then the closer you look at it, the more you see how cheaply it was put together. It's not as nice as it appears. I refer to those as hot dog builds because they look good, but you don't want to see how they're made. And Stan Ristoff with £4.49 says, "Hi, Kerry, camera girl, and chat." Welcome in, Stan. Thank you, Planet Krause. Thank you, Stan. Thank you, Peter, Frankie. And, of course, thanks to, what was that first one? Brad. Thank you, Brad. All right. Now, if you're new here, you'll notice there's a lot of people in blue in the chat. These are regulars. I hope you'll decide to become a regular, and you just get turned blue. There's nothing you have to do other than be a regular, not irregular, although that doesn't hurt, but to be a regular visitor here and participate in our live chat in a friendly, kind, supportive way. That's all it takes. Other people you'll see are in green. Those are our channel members, or they might be blue and also a channel member if they have the little gold badge with a number on it. That number shows the minimum amount of months in a row that they've been a member. The membership is $9.99 a month, and what that gets you is exclusive opportunities and smaller videos. Every Monday at 1 o'clock Arizona Phoenix time, I do videos for members only. So those videos only have a couple dozen viewers, and as such, it's more of a personal get-together of friends where we can all talk to each other. On the public videos, we get 300 to 1,000 viewers. The chat room can get a bit chaotic, and so sometimes people feel like they're being ignored because I'm not addressing them. But what they fail to realize is on this side of the camera, the chat room's just flying, and it's hard for me to keep up with it. So those annoyances are eliminated in the members only videos, where we can talk about things like what's going on behind the scenes, what my plans are for the week for video content, what's coming up, and some of the struggles or other things going on behind the scenes with regards to another studio location or studio related information. And then of course, personal one-on-one time. If somebody wants to ask me a question, I'm going to see it for sure. So, because it's a smaller audience. And then those videos are always members only. They never go public. There's things I'll discuss with members because I trust them that I won't discuss openly for fear that somebody who's got it out for me can use that to harm me. So, well, not really harm me, but annoy me. So anyway, so that's how that works. And throughout, when people offer contributions, I don't ask for them, but I consider them like a tip. So they're never expected, they're always appreciated. And so throughout, you'll hear me shout their names out as a way of saying thank you for doing something they didn't have to do, they weren't asked to do, but they did it anyway. And it's because of them, admittedly, that much of the content that I purchase, the materials I purchase from Amazon, I use for content for the channel. And so that helps cover those expenses and enables me to have more content at the end of the day. So that's how all of this is working, and we'll see how long it works this way. But so far, it's been very rewarding, I think, for everybody, I hope. And yeah, without further ado, I think we'll go ahead and open up this box here and see what we've got. Now, to prepare us, I've got all the information more or less copied and pasted from the specs page regarding what this is, and it's in the video notes along with a link to the Amazon page where they're selling it. I mean, they sell it other places, but I make a small Amazon commission, so I might as well point it to Amazon. I also know Amazon is real easy with returns. If you have any reason you want to return anything at any time, Amazon makes that easy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share that Amazon screen so we can both get an idea of what should be in this box, and then we'll get into more details of it once we hook it up and get it powered up. Now, let's see, where's my Amazon page? Should be right here. Okay, yes. So this is the AceMagician. The model of this is the I think AM06. It's in the thumbnail. But I don't see the model name here in the description. It says it's an AMD Ryzen 5 5600U, which is a 6-core, 12-thread processor that cranks up to 4.2 gigahertz. It's got Windows 11 Pro with 16 gigs of DDR4 RAM, 512 gig NVMe, and it's a graphics 7-core, 1800 megahertz. It does have support for a 2.5-inch internal solid-state drive or mechanical hard drive if you wanted to add that. It has dual Ethernet ports, and you can hook up to 3 monitors at the same time. It's got Wi-Fi 5 and Bluetooth 4.2. It's a bit of an older Bluetooth. We're up to 5.3 right now, but that really shouldn't be a problem. You'll notice down here currently it's got a $50 coupon. If you check that box, there's no coupon code you have to use, which then wants me to sign in. So that brings the price down to $328, and of course you've got free shipping on there. If we take a closer look at the product pictures here, you can see we've got 2 USB 2s, an HDMI and DisplayPort video out. There's our 2 LAN connections, a Type-C connector, and a Kensington lock. So if you wanted to lock this thing down with a steel cable so no one will walk out of the building with it, that's what that's for. That's Kensington lock would be sold separately. You've got your Type-C USB up front along with 2 USB 3.0s, and then your audio jack, which is both headphones and microphone. And that's pretty much it, I think. Just kind of going through some of the other pictures they've got here. Supports 4K at 60 hertz. It says it provides, what did it say? Provides 3 4K output ports. So one of those output ports is going to be Okay, this port I called a type C, that's the power port. So this type C on the front is what we would use as a third monitor. So that explains where the third monitor is coming from. So yeah, you can run all 3 monitors at the same time. And what else? That's kind of a breakdown of what's inside. And very easy to change the RAM and change the storage. You likely wouldn't need to go in any deeper than just taking the back cover off. And then the back cover, there's where your 2.5-inch drive, you can mount that optionally if you wanted to add 2.5-inch storage. And then they just got some pictures of how this can sit on your desk. Takes very little desktop real estate. Or you can attach it to the back of your monitor and nobody has to even see it. And they talk about the effort they put into keeping this thing cool. And we'll check all that during today's video. So that's the product we're looking at. I mean, look, at $328, there's no way you could build anything like this for probably under, with the operating system, you'd be somewhere between $500 and $600. Now, there's pros and cons to these little mini computers in regards to how upgradable they are and how repairable they are. They're pretty much very much like a laptop, apart from RAM and storage, and perhaps that little CPU cooler. There's really nothing to fix on this. Well, it's in warranty. Obviously, it's worth getting fixed. But something this inexpensive, I would consider it disposable. If something were to happen to it, it's probably going to cost more to fix it than to just buy a new one. Now, that's unlikely to happen. I've been using a small computer like this now since 2013, and it still runs great today. And I've got several similar build styles, not this unit itself, but other sort of Intel NUC machine. Well, not sort of, they are Intel NUCs that follow the same form factor, and they have all been reliable. Just about half a dozen of them I've got out in the field. One had a fan that was getting noisy. That was the only repair I had to do. They've just been solid machines. So your mileage may vary, but everything in there is solid state except for the cooling fan. There's no moving parts, in other words, except for the cooling fan. And as long as the machine is meeting your needs, I imagine you will likely get rid of the machine because you're unable to do something with it 10 years from now, or whatever that time period is. I would estimate easily out of a machine like this, the life of Windows 11. I'm not sure when Windows 11 support ends. We could Google that and see. Windows 11. And we'll do end of life. That is set for well, they have different versions of Windows 11, so I'm not quite sure when the end of support is estimated for Windows 11 in general. Kind of scrolling through this information here. It's a little muddied because of all the different builds. So the different builds have different expiration dates. Updates continue to appear for up to 5 years after Windows 11 is discontinued, usually to improve security. End of extended support means paying customers get another 5 years to support their Windows 11 systems. That's for big corporations that pay for that. We've got folks like us, we can't do that. That's not an option. Okay. So version 21H2 is set to expire on October 10th of 2023, but we're already on 22H2. So likely we don't really have an end of life set because they keep coming up with these updates, and every time they come out with an update, that means the prior update it has a deadline where they're not going to support the old version anymore, and you have to get that big update that comes out once a year. So as far as I can tell, that is set that way to be indefinite at this point. But as long as the machine is meeting your needs, and at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. The idea of the machine breaking on you or needing repair, in my experience, is very unlikely. They're extremely reliable, and unless you're doing things to it, such as overclocking it, causing it to overheat, spilling something on it, dropping it, or moving it around a lot where you're the potential for dropping it or jarring it. But if you just simply put it on a desk and plug it in and just use it, yeah, I don't see any reason why it will outlive its usefulness. Kind of like I will. But in the meantime, let's open it up. Let's see what's in the box. Hello to all my friends in the chat, all my friends in blue, all those familiar faces. Good to see you guys. I already have my knife out here. Let's do this. Hey, should we get a close-up on this? Let me put camera girl to work. That's what I think. You're slacking. Let's see here. We're going to go over to the close-up camera, which is this camera right here. There you go. Come on over. So what's interesting, usually these mini PCs or almost any product that you unbox has like a picture of the product or the model number on the product. This is kind of a generic box. It looks like AceMagician. Maybe doing this as a cost-saving measure, that they could use this box for several different models of PC that fits the same form factor and therefore would have the same, potentially the same accessories and the same packing because the case would be the same size. I kind of get that, but it is a little confusing for me to not know what's inside the box other than a mini PC, because I've got a lot of them hanging around here, and they all very boldly show off the product. So I thought that's a little unusual. Now, we do have some indication of what's in the box on this little sticker here. But yeah, it's very unusual that they put it in such a generic. It's like when you go to one of those small markets and then the grocery bags they give you just say thank you. They don't have the name of the company on them. All right, let's open this up and see what's in here. I feel like this should be adults only as I'm undressing it. All right, let's take the computer out of here. Some questions I'm asked include, how much product do you get that's just dead on arrival, where the product doesn't work? And we talk about like building a computer with motherboards and RAM and storage and cases and power supplies. And I do all the unboxings live for that very reason, that you can see if something doesn't work out of the box. We're experiencing it together. This is, again, the closest way I can come up with to give you the experience as though you're doing it yourself. And then hopefully that sticks with you more than some script read 20-minute long infomercial on a product. And I forgot where I was going with that. But here's a close-up of the case. Oh, it's actually pretty light computer compared to some of them I've been testing lately. It feels like it weighs like 2 pounds. It's super light. I feel holes underneath here. Oh, that's an interesting design. There's like weird, I'm guessing those are vents. Very unusual. I like that if we want to take the bottom off to get to the storage of the RAM, there's no feet we have to remove. On some of the mini PCs, there are feet that have to come off, and then they never quite stick back on the same. These two holes here, this is for mounting a bracket if you want to hang this thing up behind your monitor or attach it to the side of a desk or on the wall. And then we've got our Go Faster stickers across the front and the top. That's our power button right up here on the corner. And we'll just give it a 360. So they go on with this, I don't know what we call this pattern. It's almost like a honeycomb pattern all across the edges and bottom. And of course, big air vent here. You definitely don't want to block that. Okay, well, let's see what else we have in the box. These will be screws for mounting the plate on the back if you wanted to do that, and then the smaller screws are for mounting a 2.5-inch drive inside if you wanted to do that. And then on the other side here, we've got a power cable. We've got one HDMI cable. We have a pretty small power brick. I kind of like that. Does it have the name on it anywhere? Does it say AceMagician or anything? I hate when power adapters don't list the name of the company or the product they're for because they get easy to mix up. So I'll put a label maker, I'll get a label made, and look, it even has a place for a label to go right there. I don't put AceMagician across that. This is the metal plate. This little cable right here is for attaching a 2.5-inch SATA-based drive, and then this will plug into the motherboard, and what it's going to do is attach. If you're attaching the drive to this bottom plate and then you're connecting this, you're putting a leash on that bottom plate. And once you do that, be very careful with how you take the bottom plate off so you don't rip this out if you're going to use it. And then finally, we have our little booklet right there, which of course I'm not going to read, but we can flip through it. And it's in multiple languages, and there's little how-to information in there. I find most of the stuff, for somebody who's been in this industry for 30 years, it should be relatively familiar to me. After a while, it all kind of starts looking and feeling like the same, and I will expect more of that. What connector are we using? We're using a Mickey Mouse connector. That means that that's not a standard PC power cable. It's using what you often see on laptops or Nooks, which is what is often referred to as a cloverleaf, or I prefer Mickey Mouse because it looks like his ears and his head. So not because it's cheaply made, like, oh, that's a Mickey Mouse connector. That's not what I mean. I'm referring to the shape when you look at it from a certain angle. Woohoo! All right. Well, we're going to plug it in and turn it on, and is it dead on arrival? Back, for those of you who are younger, there was a time when products that arrived damaged was fairly common throughout the 70s, 80s, even the 90s. But now, the manufacturing has been mostly automated. So you don't run into human beings working in the factory or having a bad day or don't feel good. The machines can run 24/7, and they always do the same job every time. And they even go through an automated quality control check. So it's still not a perfect system, but getting a product dead on arrival is pretty rare these days. Even if the product was shipped working, but the shipper, and Lord knows how many different carriers that product was being handled by before it got to its final destination, could have been thrown, drop kicked, you don't know, it can't tell you. And they still, for the most part, survived that, and no big deal. I'm even seeing monitors now where before, if you ordered a monitor through the mail, it was about a 50-50 chance that your screen was going to arrive cracked. And that doesn't seem to be an issue anymore. It still can be an issue, especially if it's a larger screen and it's not handled well. But this stuff is just, the manufacturers have an incentive to make sure they're not having to take back product. It costs them money. And so to make sure they're building it in a way that's making it more resilient, as well as packing it better, and of course, dealing with any particular shippers, even if it means avoiding a particular shipper if it's costing the company too much in those returns. Not to mention the damage it does to the customer's perspective, right? Customer might think they're going to blame the company for something the shipper did. So in any event, we've got a warning up here. What's the sticker say? Let me see that. During the system boot process, if you cannot log into your personal account, please turn off Wi-Fi and LAN. Select the skip option and then log into your personal account in the system. Hey, that's pretty cool. I really like that they've added that. That's the first time I've seen a manufacturer who has a contract with Microsoft to put their operating system on there tell you how to avoid the Microsoft account. That's very unusual. Interesting. All right, let me step around and plug in the power supply, and then we'll get a keyboard, a mouse, and a monitor, and we're not going to plug the internet into it because I don't want it to force me to create that Microsoft account. And let's see here. Yeah, I really like how small the power brick is. And it just looks like it's a standard cell phone charger. But it's obviously got to put up more power than a cell phone charger. And that's going to go right back here, like so. And then, video. I need an HDMI cable. Now, we have an HDMI port here, a display port there. So I'm going to use HDMI. You can buy a display port to HDMI cable or adapter if you want to use another HDMI monitor. And the same is true with the front USB Type-C. You get a USB Type-C to HDMI adapter, plug it right into a monitor, and there's your third monitor. Keyboard and mouse I've got right here. We'll turn these on. And I will plug this in right up here on the front. I think I accidentally hit the power button when I did that. Yeah, you can see there's a red light right there that came on. And let's see, we'll turn it this way. And let me go over to the input, the HDMI input on this. There we go. It's already booting. You're good. Thank you for the close-ups.
You're welcome.
And here we are with our first time boot up. As you can see, we do not have a dead on arrival product. And I think in all the years I've been making YouTube videos, we've had maybe a couple of dead power supplies, 2 or 3, just dead out of the box. And not sure if there's anything. We had some dead on arrival RAM too. I don't think I've had a dead on arrival hard drive or motherboard, unless I bought a motherboard used off Amazon. Then we had one that was DOA. But actually, it wasn't DOA. It was damaged. There was something wrong with it, and I had to send it back. Now we're going to go through our standard setup routine here, which is the same I always do. I have to make my screen bigger for me so I can see it the way you guys are seeing it. Okay, there we go. Mouse is working. English, yep. United States, yes. Keyboard is US. Any other language keyboard? Nope, skip that. Now, of course, it wants to connect me to a network. I'm going to click I don't have internet down here. It says connect now to quickly get started. Continue with limited setup. There's our end user license agreement. Accept. And we'll call this AceMagician. Next, I'll leave the password blank so it just boots right into the desktop without hesitation. And I like to leave location settings on. This will set our date and time for us automatically. Or if I'm in the mood for some food and I don't know where the place is, where is so-and-so restaurant close to me, by turning location settings on, it'll work very similar to the way your phone works. The settings that I adjust can always be set back by the end user in the case of me building machines or configuring machines for customers. If they don't like any of those settings on or they want them all on, they always can go in the control panel and adjust them there. They're not only set up during setup. So here we're going to go through the final setup process of Windows 11, and once that's done, I can plug an Ethernet cord into it and we can start grabbing the updates. Let me grab camera 1 and put myself in a corner here so we can keep an eye on that, because that could take a couple minutes, as it normally would. And let me see what I'm missing in the chat room. Daco says he's not DOA yet. Well, unless you're a bot. John Jack Wilson has been a member now for 8 months. Right on. He says, hope everyone is safe and happy. Right on, John. And just an update for you. A gentleman reached out to me from Oregon, said he was a veteran. He wondered if I had any computers designated or earmarked for veterans. And in fact, I do. I have about 3 if you're a veteran that's watching. And these are older machines, but they're good for the life of Windows 10. So they're good until October 14th of 2025. And well, you could still use them throughout the rest of 2025. I would not recommend using them in 2026 unless you put Linux or something on them. They're not Windows 11 compatible, but it is a free machine. And the shipping of the free machine is being covered by our good friend John Jack Wilson there in the chat room. And so I want to give him an update that when I'm spending his money, that he knows it's going where it's going. And in this case, this gentleman is in Oregon, so that shipping isn't going to kill me. Thank goodness. I'm shipping so much stuff to the East Coast, I shudder when I get the bill. It's, $150 to $180 to ship a full-size tower to Florida or New York or Pennsylvania. So shipping it in Oregon, that should be no big deal. And that frees up more money to do more giveaways. So again, a shout out and a thanks to John Jack Wilson for making these giveaways possible. It's a shame when I'm paying more for shipping than the computer is worth. But in this case, that won't be the case shipping it to Oregon. And I'll try and get that out Monday or Tuesday next week. And John Wilson contributes $50 in Super Chat. He says, here's my late fee. Well, again, thank you so much, John. Some of you in our community are so generous. And not just to myself, but to others in their community, like our good friend Michael Dane out in Ohio, who's built over 100 computers and given them away to families in need in his local community. And I just think that's awesome. And I'd love to see more of that for people who can. There's a lot of people who can who won't. And there's a lot of people who can't because they're just struggling to get by. But for those of us who can and do help others, especially in our local community, well, I just think that's amazing. And I want to encourage that, obviously, because it's its own reward. It's one thing to feel good about getting something for free. It's another thing about giving something to somebody in need versus somebody who's just, being selfish. And so when you're really helping folks in need, it's rewarding for everyone involved. So if you don't believe me, just try it sometime. That's all I'm saying. All right, it looks like our Windows 11 has finished processing here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come around the table. I've got an Ethernet cable on the floor. If the cable on the table has a label, the cable on the table has a label and is connected to your mouse. Oh, I just hit the power button again. So this is not a good location for the power button. I just rested my palm on it and I'm pressing it, which would probably cycle it off. Yeah, the power light just went off and came back on. Oh no, it's blinking now. So I think I put it to sleep. What have I done? Let's hit it again. I got to be more aware of where I'm placing my hand, obviously. This is at a different location than what I'm accustomed to. On most of the Nooks I deal with, or the small form factor like these machines, they usually have the power button flush to the front, which I would prefer. That also means if you set anything down on top of it, not only could you be pressing the button, you'll be blocking these very important air vents. At least I think those are air vents. So ideally, there's definitely air vents on the side, and if you put this on its side, you're blocking those air vents as well. So if I were getting this specific model, make sure that I would make sure I didn't put too much around it so that it could breathe properly. So those are just a few things I'm noticing right out of the gate. They're not major, they're just something to just keep in mind when you're setting it up. Not a big deal. We'll go over to Windows Update right now and we'll grab updates. And while that may take a while, it's a good opportunity for me to talk with you guys in the chat. So we'll just set that aside. I can drag this over a little bit so we can get keep an eye on when it needs to be restarted. And in the meantime, let me go make my font a little bigger here in the chat room so as I can seize. Morton said, UPS just dropped off my new laptop. Right on, Morton. What laptop make and model did you get? Nick Poverman says, as Carrie would tell you, overclocking is a waste of time on modern computers, and I agree. I will not overclock a custom-built PC for someone. Well, it's the support side, right? When you're just doing it for yourself and whatever problems it comes up with, they're your problems and it only affects you. Have your fun. But when you're trying to run a business and when people are paying you for service, and then you're now responsible and potentially liable for any damages you cause. And if the customer were to run into any problems, you would expect them to call you, right? Because you want more business from them, I would hope. But if you don't take care of them and you keep having to do free service because the overclock is unstable and that's what they wanted, so that's what you gave them, you might soon regret it because it'll be hard to stay in business giving away all that free labor indefinitely in order to maintain that customer relationship so the customer could refer you to their friends and potentially buy another system from you. So when you're building for yourself, none of that applies. So have your fun. But when you're having your fun that results in problems, it is also, you have to understand your consequences, take your responsibilities, that when you create your own problems, ideally you solve your own problems and you're not asking other people to help you for free over something you intentionally did. So that's a great way to learn though. And having somebody help you solve the problem you made, not so much a good way to learn. Forcing you to deal with it will make you a better technician or a better, you'll be more familiar with your specific machine and where its strengths and weaknesses are, because no two machines overclock the same. And again, and when you do successfully overclock, you're looking at typically 8% gain, maybe 15% on an extreme. And when we're talking about 4,000 megahertz, 8% or 15% isn't really making that big of a deal. It also generates more heat, costs more in electricity, and may shorten the life of the components. Ahmed says, greetings from Egypt. Hello, Carrie. I wish you a good day, and I love your videos. Well, thank you very much. Hey, look, we got a viewer from Egypt. How cool is that?
I love it. Awesome.
One of my favorite Egyptian figures, or I guess it's a god, is Anubis. When I had my dog Jake, he always reminded me of Anubis. And I would love one day to have an Egyptian pharaoh hound. They are very striking looking dogs. Yeah. I don't know what they're like in their temperament, but boy, are they. I see an Egyptian pharaoh hound and I just think of those sculptures, the ancient Egyptian sculptures, and I don't know, they just strike me. So Jake was my wannabe pharaoh hound. And that's the extent of my knowledge of Egypt. That's all there is. That's all I got. Taco says, hey, it's guaranteed until it goes wrong. Yeah, you see how long that warranty works for your customers ever coming back, but I know what you mean. Thing one says, Carrie says used items from Amazon warehouse are safe to buy, but wonder if that applies to their GPUs. Is buying a used GPU worth it for that component? Well, what something is worth is an individual decision based on your particular value system, your expectations, your needs. We all have different needs. I can't tell you how much you're going to need to eat until you're full. I can't tell you what your preference is going to be over the steak, the chicken, or the fish. I don't know you. And you might normally prefer one over the other, but it may be that you don't like your preference your primary preference may be steak. But at this particular place you go eat, you don't like their steak, you like their chicken. So even individuals can change their values based on their environment. And as a result of that, when we determine whether or not something has any value, the best way we can do that is to essentially compare it in our mind. What would a new GPU cost? What's my warranty? And can I return it if I don't like it? when you talk about returned items at Amazon, I don't recommend just about any, I don't recommend consumable products. I would not buy used batteries. I wouldn't buy used paint. Not that they sell it. It's in the shape of a house. Stephen Wright joke. I wouldn't buy a used hard drive or a used solid state drive. I have, just to see, and I got a Samsung 970 Evo M.2 drive, and it had about a quarter of its life used on it, which is a lot. I was hopeful that whoever bought it plugged it in, was it compatible, they sent it back, and so it would have had very little, if anything, written to it. In this case, it looks like somebody used it for a good couple of months and then sent it back. Now that drive still works today, but the solid state drives, they have a limited number of writes that will likely outlive their usefulness anyway, but I just don't think it was worth the savings for that. I prefer peace of mind, right? So how much does peace of mind cost? So if you see a used GPU on Amazon and it's being sold by Amazon Warehouse, you can at least have peace of mind knowing that you can return it for any reason. You don't have to have a specific reason and send it back, and Amazon's very easy that way. Now I am hearing the fans ramp up on this. I don't know if you can hear it. You bring the microphone closer. Starting to slow down a little. And now it's quiet again. Now, that is the way a CPU fan is supposed to work. Back in the day when we first built computers, the fans just ran at full speed, and that was their one speed. It was on or off. These days, now fans can slow down when the unit's not as hot and doesn't need that much airflow. And then they ramp up when the CPU starts getting hot. And once they effectively cool the CPU down, the fans slow down and quiet down. That is normal operation, except when you overclock. In many cases, the fans are going to run constantly and your cooling solution is going to have to be beefed up. And it's for what you're getting in return for the money, I don't think it's worth it. And I don't think most people would notice it outside of benchmarks anyway. It may be a fun hobby for some people who have money and time. In my life, I have figured out from the people I meet that most people have time and no money, or they have money and no time. I don't run into too many people that have both money and time. But hobbies are hobbies, and they can get very expensive. I have a friend that does drone racing, and the amount of money he's got in that equipment just for something he does for fun is pretty incredible. I mean, he's got a whole bedroom in his house, just his drone room for parts. He doesn't just have one drone. The drones have cameras on them, and you wear like these virtual reality glasses, and it's like you're seeing right out of the drone. And they race. I mean, these things move. They got to be going 50 plus miles an hour. They're incredibly fast. They're like little hummingbirds. And the races happen very quickly. It's almost like comparing like the greyhound races, where they used to race greyhound dogs, versus a traditional horse race. The traditional horse race seems to take a bit longer to get around the track. Those dogs, they move so quick, and the race starts and it's over relatively soon. That's what it reminds me of. So yes, for hobbyists, for people that just want to tinker around, that's all well and good. But do bear in mind when you're watching content on YouTube, most content creators are enthusiasts. And a lot of what they're showing are enthusiast activities. A lot of the things they're worried about, when they're obsessed about frame rates or they're obsessed about temperatures, they go along with the overclocking that they're doing and creating those problems. What I see a lot of are folks that are just starting out, diving in a little bit more on the learning how to build a computer or optimize the computer they have, and think they should be worried about that same stuff. But that's nothing you need to worry about unless you're doing what they're doing, which is causing those issues or concern for those issues. Kevin Dara with a $20 super chat says, hello, Kerry, and thanks for all you do. Your reviews and input are greatly appreciated. Hey, Kevin, thank you for the super chat contribution. Do we have you as a moderator in here? Well, you are now. Thank you for supporting the channel and your kind words. All right, is this thing waiting for me on a reboot, or what's it doing? Oh, it's still doing something here. Let's see. I'm going to just go through the chat room if you have a question for me or you want to say something. I'm looking in there now, so I'm going to scroll back and see what I've been missing. Thing one regarding buying a used GPU wants to know if it will potentially fail on him sooner than a new GPU would. It's really hard to say. I mean, there's no way to know. Generally speaking, with electronics, we have said as far back as I can remember, and it still remains true today, that if the electronic device is working as it should for about a week, it'll likely continue that way for a very long time. If there are any issues, they generally pop up right away. There's no crystal ball, and I would say this. Keep your expectations in line with the amount of money you're spending. If you think you're going to get the exact same graphics card with the exact warranty and all of the peace of mind that comes with buying new, but you're going to pay less because you're outsmarting everybody, you're not outsmarting anybody, because what you've done is you've set yourself up with an unrealistic expectation. When you go buy the cheapest used car on the lot, and then you buy a brand new Mercedes, don't think when you take the car in for service, they're both going to treat you the same way. The waiting room won't be as nice. The Mercedes waiting room might have donuts and snacks, popcorn, free for everybody while you're waiting for your car to be serviced. The cheap dealer, the inexpensive car, it's sort of, well, it goes hand in hand. So that's realistic what to expect. If you require some peace of mind of warranty, and that's really, really important to you, don't buy used. But if what you want to do is save money, likely everything's going to be fine, because if there's any problems when you buy from Amazon, at least if you're buying from Amazon warehouse, you can always return the product within 30 days, and it won't cost you anything to return it. And if it survives those 30 days without a problem, I mean, unless you're overclocking it or doing something to cause it to fail, just under normal usage, I wouldn't expect it would be a problem. And you should also figure in your head, at least I would, how much you're saving to determine how much a reasonable warranty is worth. When I had to replace the engine in my Chevy Blazer, it was $6,000 for an engine, and the car wasn't worth $6,000. And the reason I authorized that repair was I knew the history of the car. I knew if I were to take that $6,000 and buy a used car, I don't know what's potentially wrong with it. But I know if I put a new engine in my Blazer, then everything else with the car is good. It's never been in a wreck. The interior's fine. It wasn't cracked. It's been well maintained. It hasn't been driven hard. And I know the history of the car. However, I also at the same time realized that if somebody runs into my car after I just put $6,000 into it, I didn't increase the value of the car. The car is still worth less than that, regardless of how much I put into it. So if I get into an accident, or if somebody runs into me, which I have no control over, then that $6,000 was a bad investment. However, if I put the $6,000 in, put the new motor in, and I don't get into any accidents, after 2 years, I've broken even, and anything after 2 years is free, basically. And so I ended up, being a little nervous those first 2 years. I hope nothing happens. And the 2 years came and went, lickety-split like that. And then I continued driving the car for another 5 or 6 years after that before I sold it. So in that case, it was a good investment. But there is some gambling involved. And if you're not the gambling type, perhaps just stick with new would be my advice. Sometimes the used prices are so good, I'll just say, you know what? If it's $200 for a $500 video card, and that video card lasts me a year and a half, I got my money's worth, right? And anything beyond that would be icing on the cake. So that's kind of the math I do when it comes to buying some used equipment, right? How much is the savings? How long do I have to own it before it pays for itself? And can I return it? Do I have to pay to return it? And how much time do I have to return it? With regards to shortened warranties, I very rarely have ever used a warranty on products. Mostly, the most common thing I return is RAM, memory modules. And even then, it's not that often. Power supplies are so cheap, it doesn't make sense to pay for the shipping back to the manufacturer, which is what you do under warranty, right? That's versus sending it back to the retailer, which you have 30 days to do. After 30 days, whatever is of your warranty, you would send back to the manufacturer at your cost. And then the manufacturer will send you back another product at their cost. And for a $50 power supply, to box it up, wait in line at the post office, pay for it to be shipped with tracking, so they can't say they didn't get it, you're probably looking around half the price of that power supply to do that. And then you're going to go at least 2 weeks before your replacement comes in. So for a cheap product to just go buy another one, I get the problem solved same day. Peter Lightcock says, hello, Marilena.
Hi, Peter.
That's the camera girl.
Hi, Buster.
And Thing One says, thank you. Right on. Happy to help. Elijah Dickens says, hi, Carrie. I'm watching you on 2 desktops. One PC shows a 2 months member and the other shows 6 months. Well, that's kind of weird. You're sure you signed in with the same account? That's very strange. This one does show 2 months. You should sign into the other one and type something in the chat and see if that badge changes. I'd like to see that. That doesn't sound right. Garfield says, I heard those fans and I don't hear all that well. Well, it is a good microphone. But this unit, the fan noise is certainly more pronounced than on some of the other units we've tested, but it's not terrible. And it's temporary. It sort of ramps up and down as the processor's being, processing these updates. Some updates are a bit more intensive on the CPU than others. It doesn't bother me. I think this would make a fine media computer to have it like in a living room and let it, stream your media through that to your television. I don't think the fan would get in the way of the experience unless perhaps you're watching a movie and it's a very dark, quiet scene. Well, it doesn't have to be dark, but if it's a real quiet scene and for some reason this thing were to be processing an update or something in the background and the fan would ramp up, I could see that being a bit distracting, but it's really not that bad. Especially if we compare it to fan noise of computers from 10, 20, 30 years ago. Those computers were much louder. But if we compare this to other modern mini PCs, this is up there with the noise level of the fan. And it's a white noise, so it's not like a coil whine or, some ear-piercing whistle. It's just a staticky white noise, and it goes in waves. Like right now, it's completely quiet. And I would guess 70% of the time it'll be that quiet, and about 30% of the time it'll ramp up for a little bit. I think that's just normal operation. But if you're sensitive to that, you're not going to like this. I can tell you that much. I don't need a crystal ball for that. All right, let me see how we're doing on our updates here. Still installing. Okay. Get rid of that little box. And back over to the chat room. Corey Liddell says, hey, good to see you, Carrie. Just popping in on my break. I'll catch up on the live later. Right on, Corey. Thanks for stopping in. Andy Kane also joins us. Stan Ristoff with £1.79 says, overclocking equals problems. For sure. Guaranteed. Because if you want to find out where the limit is of how much you can push the computer beyond its original design, you have to cross the line to figure out where the line is. So you absolutely will have problems. And then you have to back away from to see where the line started. And this can be a very, very time-consuming process to find where is the very edge before you fall off the edge. And you have to fall off the edge a few times to figure it out. And that means rebooting the computer, resetting things, and you just keep doing that over and over and over. And when you find your stable overclock, you'll probably find the improvement is usually a single-digit percentage, and it isn't really worth all the investment of time unless that's just something you like to do. Garfield says, if I had a computer, I guarantee you I wouldn't overclock it. When we did overclocking in the 90s, we could take a Celeron 300 and we could get it to 600. We could double it. Some people could even get it to 900. Can you imagine if you could take a 4 gigahertz processor and double it to 8 gigahertz? Then I'd understand overclocking. It would make sense, especially for the amount of time and effort and expense you've got to put into additional cooling and the added expense of running a system with that much more power. But the returns on the investment just are diminishing. And the CPUs, to be honest, they mostly overclock themselves with things like turbo and boost that they handle internally in the BIOS. That's why you hear the fan ramp up and go down. That CPU is speeding up and the CPU is slowing down. When the CPU speeds up, it gets hotter. The fans have to kick up to cool it down. And then when the CPU isn't needing all that power, then it drops its frequency level down. It lowers its power consumption, which causes less heat, which means the fans don't have to run as loud. So more or less, overclocking is being done for you on modern computers. And it's being done in a conservative manner. We're not taking it right to the edge, or people would be complaining about how crappy the CPU is. But when people do it to themselves, they don't complain about how crappy their CPU is because they're the ones causing the problem. Jorge Ruiz says, hello, Uncle Kerry. Greetings from Chiapas, Mexico. Am I pronouncing that right? Chiapas? I don't know. I've never heard of it. He said, do you have a recommendation for a ready-to-go motherboard for a 5600G CPU? There's no way anybody can make a recommendation to you because we don't know what size case, what you're planning to do with it. We don't know what's available in Mexico, and we don't know the Mexico currency conversions. So really, it's up to you to figure out what's going to meet your needs and your price budget and what's available in your country. Chris says his motherboard automatically set his 12600K to 5.3 gig, and that's really good for an AI overclock. Yeah, well, a lot of the overclock can be done automatically through motherboards. ASUS motherboards can do an auto overclock function. A human being can still get a little bit more performance out of it, but if you don't know anything about it, ASUS can make it very easy on some of the higher end motherboards they offer that do that AI overclock. I still don't recommend it though. It'll still run hotter, and if you put a better cooling solution, a more expensive cooling solution, likely the automatic overclock will result in a higher final number. Nick Poverman says, I have a freezer from 1998 that's in my basement that still works. The only thing was replaced in all this time is one of the hinges. I use it to hide the bodies. You know, the thing about using old appliances is the amount of power they use. That's the problem. So if you have an old refrigerator or an old stove or an old washing machine, dishwasher, clothes dryer, replacing it can lower your electric bills significantly, depending on how often you use that appliance. So in some way, something like an old freezer is likely adding to your electric bill in a very measurable way. Replacing that with a modern freezer is probably going to pay for itself within, depending on the efficiency rating, as soon as 1 year, and certainly within 2 or 3 years. So sometimes holding on to these old electronics because they work, you're paying for it in a way you don't realize, which is in the power consumption. And if you're ecologically minded, if you're Greta Thunberg or something, you'd get rid of it strictly because it is not eco-friendly compared to today's modern models. But, a decision for each of us to make. But I can tell you, take a pool pump, for example. If you're in Arizona, a lot of people have pools, in-ground pools, and the filters need to cycle all the water in the pool every day. And it used to be the pool pump was on or off, just like computer fans used to be, on full speed or off dead stop. Today's pool pumps, you can actually articulate how many gallons per minute you want the pump to move. And you can also articulate if you want 10%, 20%. In increments of 10%, you can adjust how much you want that motor to be on. Normally, I keep my pool pump motor at 70%. Now, the old pool pump motor was always at 100% if it was on. I'm accomplishing the same job, but I'm spending way less money in electricity because a pool pump probably represents 1/3 of the electric bill, because it's a 220 volt, 8 hours a day run, and second only to an air conditioner, right? That, as we all know, running the air conditioner can raise our electricity. And if you have an old air conditioner, it will cost you more to run, assuming it's of the same size, than a modern one. And so you make your money back on the electric savings. So that's just food for thought. Thing one says he just wanted to save some money by looking at a used GPU. It was $135 less than a new one. Yeah, well, that's up to you if it's worth a $135 discount. You know, $135 under what? If you're spending $1,400 for a new one and $1,265 on a used one, it's, I don't know, not a very big savings. But if it's a $500 GPU new and used, it's say $365, that feels like a much better savings percentage-wise. But again, as long as it's coming from Amazon warehouse, you should have peace of mind knowing if there's anything wrong with it in the first 30 days, you just send it back at no cost to you. And then that should make that an easier pill to swallow or a more realistic gamble to take. Yeah, and if that's too much of a gamble for you, then yeah, spend the extra $135 and don't get, just get rid of the anxiety. What's peace of mind cost? Let me see, is it time to reboot? Yeah, it is time to restart. So we'll appear and hit restart. Oh, Mitch Morrison joins us in the chat. Welcome in, Mitch. Mitch wants to know what you call a camel with no hump. Humphrey. Wow. Ouch. John Williams wants to know, is it a chlorine pool or a saltwater pool? I did convert the pool over in the house that I grew up in. We converted that to saltwater, and I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. You just have to dump a great big bag of salt or two in it once a year, and it converts that salt into chlorine, and the water had almost a seawater saltiness to it. The pool here is a chlorine pool. But yeah, no regrets on that saltwater pool, because the saltwater pool, it never had to put chlorine in it. It made its own chlorine. It was very easy. You did have to clean out the inside the, I forget what the device is called, the chlorinator. It has these metal fins, and they get a buildup on them, and it becomes less and less efficient. You have to open it up, hose it out, clean it up, get all the buildup off of it. You could soak it in hydrochloric acid, I think, or we soaked it in something. And I mean,
Muriatic acid.
What did I say?
Muriatic. Well, you said hydrochloric, but it's muriatic.
Muriatic acid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we dumped it in that, and then we ended up just dumping the muriatic acid back in the pool.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like we were wasting it. And it only took seconds. Like, that stuff ate it away real quick. You put it back together. All right, we're back up and running over here. So let me go back to Windows Update. If you ever get a new computer or a new phone, I always suggest you go to the settings and check for updates. I did that this morning on my Android phone, and there was a big Android update. Now, eventually, when it comes to phones, they will auto-install over time. I want the update as soon as possible, so I'll check once a week, usually on my phone. I usually get an Android update once a month. Windows updates come out every first Tuesday of the month, and so if you have a computer that's, I don't know, who knows when it was built, right? Like, I don't know when this AceMagician computer was built, so I don't know the last time it had an update. So the very first time you get a computer, before you start using it, my strong recommendation is for you to immediately get all the updates before you do anything else. That's what I do, and it can take hours, by the way, if the computer's been a long time since it's had an update. Now again, Windows 10 and Windows 11 will get those updates automatically in the background over time. I don't want to be vulnerable in that little window of time. So before I start personalizing the computer with my own software needs, I want it fully updated first. It also might improve the performance of the computer and end up making it quicker for me to get things installed. Goods Music says, hey, Mitch, I was going to become a comedian too, but everybody just laughed at me. And Russell Starr said, hey, Glenn's Music, I'm laughing at you now. Nick Poverman said, I'm afraid of the calendar. Its days are numbered. Oh, I'm afraid for the calendar. For the calendar.
That was a good one.
Steve Welch is asking Mortant how's the new laptop look? Oh, I had asked him what new laptop he bought. Did he ever answer me? I gotta look. Luke Greenia says, I just sent you a $20 PayPal contribution. Thanks for the great content, my friend. Neat mini PC. I'm still hoping for one. Right on, Luke. And how's your new laptop, by the way? And Mortant said, I just sent you an Amazon gift card. Oh, all right. Well, I better check that out. Let's see here. What have I been missing? Oh, there it is. A $100 Amazon gift card. Wow, that's very generous.
Thank you.
He goes, this will help with the shipping of computers or for the channel. Very kind. Thank you so much. And there's Luke Greenia's $20 PayPal. Right on. You guys rock. Let me go back over here. Is this still doing something? I'm going to get a dual monitor set up in here because this is really getting old for me. Oh, downloading only 5%. What the heck? Well, the internet connection here in Studio B is pretty slow, but that's not moving at all. All right, I'll just be patient. All right, I was looking to see what laptop. Wow, that's really far back. And if I'm quiet, you can hear the fan speed up and slow down as it's grabbing this update. Mark Leibowitz earlier here in the chat said, since opening my own consultancy 13 years ago, I think I've experienced 5 out-of-box failures. 4 were SSDs and 1 was a graphics card. In the same amount of time, maybe a dozen in-warranty failures. Well, depending on how much you're selling, that could be a very low number or a high number. I'm guessing you're selling a lot. Stan Ristov said, you should see the power brick on the latest Alienware laptops. It literally looks like a brick. That's funny. Rob Dvorak says, Carrie, last month I bought a new lawnmower, starting with one of your Amazon links. I hope I did it correctly and you got your commission. You know, Rob, I don't normally look at the listings of what's been sold day to day, but if you give me an idea when you bought it, I could look it up and see if it's in there. It probably is. I would imagine if you use my link, I can't see why it wouldn't be. Mortant bought a Legion 5. Legion 5i Gen 7 Intel 15-inch with an RTX 3070 Ti. Ooh, got a gaming laptop. Nice. Well, that's exciting. You got that today? If you do end up purchasing anything from Amazon Warehouse to save money, please let us know your experience with that. Do you know, after you've had it a while and you've made up your mind if you're keeping it or sending it back, come share the experience with us and let us know why, one way or the other, and whether or not you do it again, whether or not you recommend it. Just overall, would you have a good experience or did you have a bad experience? I would rather hear from people sharing their experience than people speculating on what might my experience be. It's very difficult to answer that kind of question. But we can certainly develop a pattern or a consistency from chat members, chat room participants, who share their experience and see what the common denominator is. Are more people very happy with that? Or are the vast majority regretting it? Or ended up sending things back and aren't going to do that again? I would love to see and collate that information. So please keep that in mind when you join the chat. If you were to, or if you already have purchased something from Amazon that was a returned product, what was it? And was that a good decision? I'd love to hear from you. Nev Wells says, good evening, and everyone in the chat. Welcome in, Nev. Ron Barnish says, my CPU is working okay now, fingers crossed. I guess I might have missed some other earlier conversation there. Glenn's Music says, there's bots in here with my name on them. Well, they have to subscribe to the channel to join in the chat, so I encourage them. And of course, we can always hide them from the channel, and then they can just create another user account and come back in as long as they subscribe. So all they're doing is boosting my channel. I don't see any harm in that. I mean, if YouTube allows it and it benefits me, let them keep coming in. I mean, if it sounds like a very nice thing to do for a creator, honestly. Stan Ristoff with £4.49 says, have a Gatorade on me. Hey, thanks, Stan. I think I will. Luke Greenia says his new Dell is rocking on so far. What was that you got? It was an XPS, wasn't it? That's what I use myself. Peter didn't realize I was on right now. Peter, I am on every single Friday at 1 o'clock Phoenix time. So just put it on your calendar, put it on your reminders of your phone or your email application to send you a reminder. Every Friday, 1 o'clock Arizona time. Right now, that's 12 p.m. Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern. And in the springtime, when we move the clocks up an hour, then that time moves up an hour. But Phoenix never moves our clocks ever. So it's always 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Fridays, Phoenix time. And so for half of the year, like the time we're in now, California is an hour behind us. In the spring, California moves their clock up an hour, and then they're on the same time zone, or they have the same time as us. When it's 1 o'clock here, it's 1 o'clock on the West Coast during the spring months. And then when they take their clocks back an hour in the fall, they fall an hour behind us. The East Coast is 2 hours ahead of us. So if it's 1 o'clock here, it's 3 o'clock in New York and Florida on the East Coast. And then when they move their clocks up in an hour, it'll be 4 o'clock. But always 1 o'clock Phoenix time. So I don't know what time zone you're in, but you could clearly just Google what time is it in Phoenix, and it'll show you the current time. Look at your clock, and you'll see the time difference. And that's how you can know when to catch me live. Always on Fridays at 1 o'clock Phoenix time. Daco says, I love Tommy Cooper. Wasn't he the comedian that died on stage? British guy. Had like a heart attack on stage. People thought it was part of the act, so nobody came out to help him for a while. And then he wasn't moving. And then some stagehands came out and whew, talk about dying on stage. I mean, he took it literally. Terrible joke, but I'm sure of all people, he'd appreciate it. Luke Grenian says he's got a Dell Dimension 3520 with an i7 12th gen. Dimension? That's a desktop, right? Is that a laptop? I thought it was an Inspiron or an XPS. Ant says, yes, that is correct about Tommy Cooper. Daco. And Joshua says his son died 5 years later. Wow. So Tommy Cooper isn't really known here in the United States. I only know that because I'm a bit of an Anglophile. Luke Grenia corrects. He says it's not a Dell Dimension, it's a Dell Inspiron or Inspiron. Cool. All right, that makes more sense. All right, time for me to check on this little computer here. Did it ever finish its download? What's it doing? It's installing. Okay, well, making some progress. That is a big update, apparently. Once this finishes, we'll restart. It should be the last update. Then I can run Crystal Disk Mark on it. We can get an idea of what our input-output performance is. And we can take a look at the internal specifications with CPU-Z. And of course, we can take the bottom off of it to look inside, but it's mostly going to look like they all do. You're going to have a spot for your NVMe storage. There may be a spot for a second NVMe, I don't know. There's typically 2 RAM sockets. The RAM is not soldered on. And then there's a little bay under the cover to mount a 2.5-inch drive, whether that's a mechanical or solid-state drive. To take it out any further than that is unnecessary. The CPU is upside down. And so the CPU is soldered onto the motherboard. We can't change the CPU out. So there should be no reason to remove the motherboard and flip it over to look at the CPU side of things. Everything we need to access, including if we wanted to upgrade the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth to, let's say, put Wi-Fi 6E or the soon-to-be Wi-Fi 7, that's usually very easy to change out in these little mini computers. And it's all just removing that back plate. Very easy. Dwayne Blackwelder joins us, says hello everyone and happy Friday. Welcome in, Dwayne. Oystein joining us from Norway, contributes 100 Norwegian krona. He says, good content as always. By the way, it's a small possibility I'm going to go to Phoenix during the year. Well, hey, you'll have to reach out to me. Maybe we can do lunch. Be nice to meet you. And you can tell me all about Norway. I have a lot of questions. Like, what does the fox say? Stan Ristoff says, Carrie, if you like England, I'll trade you. I love the USA. Let's switch places. Hey, I'm all for it. Absolutely. I could have fish and chips every day, like good fish and chips. I could probably go to a different chippy every day for years and never go to the same place twice. You know what it's like trying to find fresh seafood in Phoenix?
Didn't happen.
There's $5. Well, there's a couple places. There's a couple.
I wouldn't call it fresh.
There's 5 or 6 off the top of my head, but
you
they're.
see an ocean anywhere near here?
But that's what scares me about the Las Vegas seafood buffets. Where's that seafood coming from? The sewers? Angel with a $5 contribution says hello. Thank you for the contribution, Angel. Chris Johnson's been a member now for 8 months. He says, hello, everyone. I'm grateful to be with you. Well, we're grateful to have you. Ray Burke says, hi, Carrie, I've caught your live stream. Indeed you have. We are live. Some people can't tell when the video's live or not. And they are like, hey, how come I can't find the chat room? Because it's not, you're watching a replay in most cases. But yeah. John Paul Bacon says, Carrie, if you want the freshest seafood, go to Pike Place Market in Seattle, Washington. Yeah, I've heard a lot about that. But, you know, I'd be so close to Vancouver. And I've heard, you know, I could get some really good fish and chips there. The problem is fish and chips is often made with cod, and that's my preference. They'll use haddock or they'll use other types of fish. But like when I went to California years ago, I foolishly thought I could get fresh cod fish and chips. But cod is mostly in the colder part of the ocean, up around Alaska, or you get into Washington and by Canada, then they can catch cod locally. So what they had in like San Diego and LA, what I saw was red snapper was being used in fish and chips, and I didn't like it. And Bubba Gump Shrimp Company was using mahi as part of their fish and chips, and I thought it was too mushy. I didn't like it. Mushy mahi. Yeah, but I love getting a nice fresh piece of cod and you cut into it with the fork. Or to heck with the utensils, just let me grab that whole thing with my hands and eat it like a sandwich. And it should be firm and flaky. Am I drooling? Why are we talking about this? You know how long I got to go fishing to get a fish in the desert? I got to wait a long time. All right, one good earthquake and we'll have Yuma Beach. As California just breaks off. All right, we're ready for a restart? Let's restart it. Andy Kane says, cod and chips. Yeah, and I just heard you guys call it, like the little scraps, you'll call it fish and chips and bits, or fish and chips and scraps. We have a fast food chain out here called Long John Silver's, and you always get the little batter scraps when they scoop it out of the fryer. You get those little crunchy batter bites. Oh, it's so good. To know that that's a thing, and people ask for that. Give me fish and chips with bits. I'm like, ooh, I'm liking it more and more. Let's trade places. Luke Greenia says mahi is a sweet fish. It's not good for fish and chips, in my opinion. I agree. Yeah, I didn't care for it. And the only way I'm eating fish, for the most part, is if it's deep fried, or any seafood for that matter. I've had broiled cod. It's actually pretty good when it's seasoned right. And then I've had a tilapia, and tilapia, it's a thinner fish and it's a little more fishy. It's, has that fishy smell. And I like the texture of a thick piece of cod versus some places you have more breading than you have fish. I don't like that. Nick Poverman with a dad joke. Dear math, grow up and solve your own problems.
What?
Marsman50 says, Friday night fish fry, every city in Wisconsin every Friday.
If you're going to Wisconsin.
I've never been to Wisconsin. Growing up in Michigan, Wisconsin's just right there. Never been there. Gonna have to change that one of these days. Ant says, I'm eating battered cod this very moment out of the air fryer. Okay, first of all, it's not an air fryer. It's an air baker. That is a marketing deception if I've ever heard one. Everything I put in it comes out real super dry. And they'll say, oh, you put some oil on potatoes and then you put them in there and you have French fries. They're just dry. It's like cooking with a hairdryer. It's not frying. I make that argument all the time. It's not an air fryer. It's an air baker. It gets under my skin. It does make tater tots really well, though.
Just try a hairdryer.
Try a hairdryer.
Yeah.
Might work just as well. Did you know Albert Einstein was a real person? I thought he was just a theoretical physicist. Einstein was a genius, but his brother Frank was a real monster. These are terrible.
I still like the ketchup one better.
Yeah, I rubbed ketchup in my eye. That's okay, now I have hindsight. You shouldn't be laughing, you're just encouraging me. Ant says, tumbleweed gif. Listen carefully, you can hear the crickets. Stan Aristov's mentioned something about salmon. I don't like salmon. You can have mine. Cholo HD says hard-boiled eggs in the air fryer, 135 degrees Celsius for 15 minutes. It's so easy. I got another idea. Pot of water, put the stove on high for 15 minutes. Super easy. And they got minute rice for the microwave. What, wasn't fast enough before? It's minutes taking too long. Taco says, I love a full English breakfast and burgers, but I'd have to kill my own food. I'd be a vegetarian. I'm sure many other people would too. I don't know. I don't see a whole lot of problem taking care of a chicken. Even if he does give me the finger. Chicken fingers.
That was a good one.
Samuel Kowalski says, do you still like Coca-Cola? Yes, I generally, I'll have a single Coke throughout the day. Or if I go out to eat, then I'll have something, to have with dinner. But I'm not craving it like I used to. So it's not for any health reason or anything. I'm just not craving it like I used to anymore. Jim says you're an easy laugh. And that's a problem? Nick Boverman wants to know, what's the best thing about Switzerland? I don't know, but the flag is a big plus. Michael Dane says, why shouldn't you use beef stew as your password? It's not strong enough.
That was a good one.
He removed his message. He retracted that joke.
Put it back in there.
That's all right. All right, we're just finalizing these updates. Hopefully we'll get back to the machine here. Samuel Kowalski mentions ramen. Yeah, they had a big 18-wheel truck turn over and spill ramen all over the road. Cost the company $58. Angel with a $2 super chat says, my friend David lost his ID. Now he just goes by Dave. Wow. You know what you call a fish with no eye? Captain Blisky says, come on, you guys, I'm trying to be miserable over here. Oh. Many people were trying to be happy, and we just made them miserable with these terrible jokes. And Twain says, great, now I want some seafood now. I kind of do too. Let's talk of fish and chips. I haven't had that in a long time. The problem is the place I like to go to is 25 minutes from here. It's a long drive. Worth it. And it's expensive for 2 people to eat there. It's almost like a fast food restaurant, kind of, where you walk up to the counter and you order, and then they bring the food to your table. So it's not fancy, but the prices, you'd think it was fancy. It's about $60 for 2 people to eat there. It's a little bit more than McDonald's, but the fish, all the seafood is very fresh there. Okay, let's go back to, what are we doing here? All right, reboot is complete. I don't know what update is causing Microsoft Edge to duplicate itself on the desktop. It's just a shortcut, but I've been seeing that this week. Must be a recent update causing that little glitch. Back over to settings, and then one more time over to Windows Update, and we should see that there's no more updates. Do we have the AMD tool installed? I think we do. Yeah, AMD Adrenalin software. This is what I failed to run when I was doing the benchmarking on the other system the other day. And this can obviously make a difference in performance. And we can check this for updates as well. Go over here to the gear icon. Boy, that screen is so faded. It's hard to read anything. Drivers. Oh, it leads to a page not found error. That's great. Should be somewhere in here I can check for updates. I got to solve this monitor issue. This is a new monitor, but it's really a television, and it's just, I think I should have put a monitor here and not a TV, because I'm starting to realize the difference between a television and a monitor. Even under the same 1080 resolution, the TV's just not optimized for a computer screen. And I suppose if I was closer to it, it wouldn't bother me as much, but I'm having a real hard time seeing it. I also have studio lights shining in my face too, and that's not helping. I'll get back to that in a minute. Let's see how we're doing here. Download and install that. Andy says, I need to put my glasses on. Yeah, maybe. Garfield says, thanks for the jokes, Carrie and everyone else. My back doesn't hurt so much right now. Hey, all right. Laughter's the best medicine. Frank Jimmy says, what is the main ingredient for a witch's brew that affects gravity? It's Sir Isaac Newton.
Okay.
Man goes to the doctor. This is from Daco. Man goes to the doctor. The doctor says, go over to the window and stick your tongue out. The man says, why? What does that do? Doctor says, nothing. I just don't like my neighbors. Is Mara fallen off her chair yet?
Almost peed my pants.
The Adrenaline software updates are under the system tag. Under the system tag. All right, let me go full screen on that again. I think he meant system tab. System. Where is system? Under settings? Yeah, there's system. Okay. Yeah, I will put on my glasses and I'm going to walk closer to the screen because the text is, well, you can see the text. It's really faded. About, so I don't see an update. I see release notes. I see APU, software and driver details. Maybe it's under that. I don't know. I can't see any option for update. About. Oh, wrong mouse. I gotta use the right mouse. Let's go over here. No check there. Nothing here. Details on the system. Yeah, I don't see anywhere where it says to check for updates or to verify that we have the latest. Where's that at? I've used the software before and I don't recall having this problem. What am I missing? Well, they said it was under the system tab. We're under the system tab. Snap settings, factory reset, reset game stats, issue reporting, issue detection, bug report tool, import or export. Don't know. You'd think that would be very prominent. You'd think they'd want you to check it regularly for the best.
There's a bell at the top right-hand corner.
That's true. These are just notifications, so nothing about an update. I don't know where it is. Taco said he was having dinner with Gary Kasparov, you know, the guy that's the famous chess player. Mm. But they had a checkered tablecloth and it took him 2 hours to pass the salt. Lynn's Music wants to know if I can ask the camera girl for the secret of how not to age after 30. Well, I'll let you know when she hits 30. Can you type update at the search bar? Oh, well, I suppose that's an idea, isn't it? Screen. Where's the search? Well, I am confused. Well, that's nothing new though, is it?
You usually figure it out though.
Oh, I will figure it out. Even if it means I'm going to go download the latest AMD Adrenaline. Maybe I'll just do that rather than trying to update this one.
Yeah.
I mean, I would think if there was an update, it would tell me, but I don't like to assume. I mean, we're downloading anyway, so what's one more thing? All right, we're going to type in AMD Adrenaline download. Download now. Processors with graphics. No, where is the Adrenaline software? Is it the chipset software? I'm confused. AMD Adrenaline technology, download now. Okay, I hit the download now button and it just takes me to this page with a bunch of downloads. I guess it's under graphics, right? That's the Adrenaline is the graphics driver. And which graphics card did this say this had? Let's see, device manager, display adapter is a Radeon. Oh, it just says Radeon. Doesn't even tell me the model. Well, it's a AMD Radeon. It's got to be a 5600 series, right? Well, it's a 5600 series CPU. Shouldn't be this much of a mystery to solve this. Doesn't say on the bottom of the box. Now, the irony is I'm sure the Radeon software will tell me. AMD Radeon graphics. Which one is it? Let me step up over to the monitor. Hardware details, software and driver details. All right, that's probably what I want, software and driver. Well, let's see, what's the hardware say? Radeon doesn't give me a make. Just says AMD Radeon. It doesn't tell me which Radeon. Wonder why they do that. I guess they just want to keep it a secret.
Windows system.
Let me see in the chat. They're probably shouting at me. He says, search your product above. Oh, on the website? Let's see. Search all products. Well, but again, I don't know which one it is. It should be like an auto detect or something. You know what? Let me take another look at the Amazon product page. Maybe it's detailed in the specs over there. We have a Ryzen 5 5600U CPU with built-in Radeon graphics, but which built-in Radeon graphics does it have? Or do we just use 5600U? I can search the processor, Alexander says, and it will show up. Okay, well, let's give that a shot. That makes sense. So I realize that's behind my picture of the search there, but I'll type in 5600U. Let's see what it says. Drivers and support. Windows 11. Ah, there it is. AMD Software Adrenaline Edition. We're on version 22.11.2, which I think we were at, what, 21, I thought it said was our version. So that is downloading. I'll temporarily get rid of camera 1 because it seems like there's a lot of information lately that's been up in that corner that I can see, but you guys can't see it. But now you can. And apparently I've just closed it out. Oh, all right, close that one. So that's downloading, and then how's our update doing? Update's installing at the same time, that's good. It said it was version 22.11.2, and we're running so there I was looking for a graphics card driver when I needed what is effectively a chipset driver that AMD's calling Adrenaline. I'm getting up to speed here with the way AMD's doing stuff. I'm not seeing the driver version there. Software and drivers. 22.20.27. What seems different? 22.10.22. Is this the current version? Boy, it sure would be nice to have confirmation of that with a little button I could check. Check for updates. You have the current version, or there's a new version, click here to download it. It's got to be in here somewhere. Shouldn't have to spend this much time looking for it. Could I right click on it? Nope. Nope. So the best I can do is just, to be sure, is download the latest version, and if it's the same version, just right on top of it. But at least that way I know. I'm sure I could probably do a Google search on this and figure it out, but AMD's doing things very differently. I can't say I'm on board with how they've hidden it. If I've got to look this hard to find the driver version, or not the driver version, but how to check for a new driver, that's just not good software design. They are showing 22.11.2, and I think that's what we've got. Released on the 8th of December. And did our Windows Update finish? That's still installing, and I don't want to start another install at the same time. I like to install one thing at a time so things don't interfere with each other. So we'll go ahead and let that run. And we've got the driver ready to install, but I think it's the same version we already have. I'm just not positive. William Dawson said the GPU is a secret. Even AMD gives no version of what the specific model of graphics it is. Duncan, he said, you said you had version 22.10.22. Yeah, but sometimes the version number in the software could be, let's say, 8 digits long, and that the manufacturer might only show the first 4 digits or the last 4. Edward Kenny says, I checked for Adrenaline updates from the Home tab. Yeah, I'm looking all over. I don't know why I can't see it. This is Home. And I don't see anywhere to check for updates here. Yours must look different than mine. That's a weird one. All right, well, we're waiting for that to finish. Just see if you guys have any other questions for me here in the chat room. Samuel Kowalski has been a member now for 6 months. Right on. Well, thanks for being part of our tech club, Samuel. He says, keep up the great work. Keep up the great videos, Carrie. I'll do my best. Duncan, he said, my AMD GPU nags me when a new update becomes available. Well, that's what I'm assuming it would do. That's why I think we have the same version. I just would like to confirm it. Thomas Backenstow joins us in the chat room, says hello. Welcome in. Welcome in, Thomas. Cod Doe in the chat room says, Carrie, your Adrenaline Edition GUI is so different than mine. Yeah, it may be because it's a mini PC. That's all I can think of. I'm sure it's the same software. It's just how it displays on different hardware. Some folks were asking what the CPU was. Isn't that in the title of the video that we're watching? Thought it was. Down Under says it's under System. So we've been told it's under Home. We've been told it's under System. I've looked in System. I don't know. I'm not seeing it. I should use CPU-Z. Well, that won't tell me anything about software drivers. That only tells me about the model of the GPU. I can get the model number, but we've already got the Adrenaline software downloaded. I just wanted to see if I've already got that same version installed or not. So to have some kind of confirmation is what I'm looking for. Yeah, so under System, this is where we've been looking this whole time. I'm puzzled. There's release notes. But nothing to check for updates. And the release notes page can't be found. So that makes me wonder if in fact I have an older version. And that's why the page isn't there anymore? I don't know. It's very strange. Usually it would be like under the About page, there'd be an option to see if the version is the latest. We can see our full version here. Yeah, I don't see anywhere in here to check. So I really don't have much choice but to just install the software on top of itself with the latest version. And this install here isn't moving, so I'm going to be impatient and I'm going to do what I said I wasn't going to do, and that is start the install while Windows Update is installing, which is probably not a good idea, but that's all right. Oh, now it's installing. It's at 35% forever. As soon as I start this, it doubles. All right, well, take what I can get. Wow, that's a lot of extraction. You can hear that fan cranking up. John Paul Bacon says the AMD Radeon RX Vega 7 is the model of internal GPU on the 5600U CPU. All right, well, appreciate the info, although that information wasn't going to help me after all. So this is showing 22.11.2. Chat is saying the newer version is available through Windows Update, not from the manufacturer directly. That doesn't make any sense, because where would Windows Update get it if not from the manufacturer? So I'm not quite sure what's going on with that, but I would trust the manufacturer as being, having the most current driver before I would trust Microsoft to provide me the most current. That doesn't mean I'm right. It's just, that's the way I lean towards when there's trying to decide which one should I trust more than the other. I'm always going to trust the manufacturer first. And I think I'm going to go grab a cold Gatorade. This one's getting warm. You know how much these Gatorades are costing now? I picked up another little 12 pack of these. They were like $6.99. And they were always sold out all the time. Now they're $9.49 at Safeway. And guess what? They're in stock. So apparently people aren't buying them as much now that they've gone up by 30%. Price of eggs has shot up too. I guess a lot of avian flu is affecting a lot of chicken ranches. They've had a lot of chickens die from it. So they're not getting as many eggs, and then the price of eggs is going up. And at the same time, one of the biggest egg producers has had record profits. So which is it? $7 for 12 eggs is a bit pricey. I had a coupon alert that they had a dozen eggs at Whole Foods for $3.58. So when does Whole Foods become the place you're saving money? I've never seen that happen before. Whole Foods is cheaper to buy those particular eggs that were on sale.
Very rare.
I walked up to the butcher there and I said, how much for a dozen eggs? And they said, it's $5. I said, well, how much is a cracked egg? If the eggs are cracked. Oh, those are 25 cents each. And I go, okay, well then crack me a dozen. Scott Hallinan says hello in the chat. Welcome in, Scott. Alhaj Tepej says hello, joins us in the chat room. Welcome in. There's Carlos Hernandez saying hello. Mortant said I would select About AMD software at the bottom. I already did that, Mortant. Now, I don't have the DVR mode turned on, but if you replay the video after we're done today, you'll see I was on that page, and I left it up just to see if there was some faded text that was so similar to the background color I wasn't seeing it. But yeah, that literally just gave us the About information. There's no options or anything other than you click OK to close the box. That's all it is. All right, let me see how we're doing now. System restart is required. Of course, we're doing an install right now, but let's hit finish. And this update is taking forever. I think we can still restart this and this will finish the install. I don't think it interrupts it. Let's see what happens. That download was taking a while. I just want to make sure that when I run the benchmarks on it, that we've got all the updates for security and performance. Otherwise, you know, we're not really getting accurate results. And yeah, the update is continuing, which is what I was hoping for. Scott Hallinan said we have a huge egg shortage here in New Zealand because the government's banned battery hens. I don't know what battery hens are. So now eggs are in hot demand and the supermarkets run dry within a day the minute we get some into the supermarket. Well, I'm not a big fan of eggs. I enjoy them from time to time, scrambled eggs. Or if I'm making cookies or a cake, things that take eggs. But yeah, every once in a while, maybe on a Sunday, I'll get a hankering for bacon and eggs and put my chef's apron on and get to cooking. Speaking of which, hopefully I'll be able to revisit the food sub-channel that I have, the cooking sub-channel, and share with you some more of my favorite little recipes. Garfield wants to know if current version of Windows 10 or 11 provide Windows Media Player. I've got a bunch of CDs. Yeah, there's a Microsoft Groove Music is the media player. I usually uninstall that and I use VLC, which is a free open source program. Just make sure when you Google VLC that you're going to the VLC website and not downloading some hacked version. Of course, if you have a product like Malwarebytes that's paid for, it would alert you if you were downloading a hacked version. But I wouldn't use Microsoft's media player. I don't like it. Mark Gaines says battery hens are caged hens. Oh, okay. Well, we call them caged. Well, we don't call them caged. We call them, what's the word for the chickens that are free to roam?
Free range.
Free range chickens. If they're not free range, then it's assumed they're caged. So, yeah. Dan Nilsson said he still uses Winamp.
I used to love Winamp.
Yeah, me too. They were purchased by a company in Sedona, Arizona. Wouldn't you like to go to work there in that beautiful?
Yeah.
If you guys have ever seen pictures of Sedona, Arizona, it's a pretty cool place. Google it and look at the images. It's like the dirt is red and the mountains are they're like large rocks versus like, instead of large mounds of dirt, they look like formed rocks that are massive. And they're this red color. It's very surreal. It feels like you're on Mars. It feels like you're on another planet. Not specifically Mars. Vern Moore, he says, I checked out the store the other day and the free range eggs were way cheaper than the regular eggs. Yeah, that's a telltale sign, isn't it?
The organic's cheaper.
So let's see if we go over, since this is updating, it's not much to look at. Let me go full screen back on camera 1. And then we'll go back to a window capture, which I have right there. And so what I do to grab VLC is I just type VLC and hit enter. And it shows right here, videoland.org, the official, this is the link you want. And we want VLC for Windows. And then we're going to download the 64-bit version, which is automatically detected. We drop down here, there's other versions we can download. And that's where you get it. Be very careful of the source you get your software from, because that's how people get their identity stolen and their bank accounts emptied and their data encrypted with ransomware, is by not paying close enough attention to the source. These folks, the bad folks, will optimize search engine optimization so that their links come up first, and it's not always the first link you want. In this case it was, but not always. And of course, if you have a good anti-malware product, like the paid version of Malwarebytes is what I use, then that would pop up in all likelihood to let you know it's a virus. It looks like I don't have Malwarebytes on the streamer though. So I got to be a little extra careful with this machine. I'm assuming that's still updating. Yep, that's going to take a while. And back over to the chat. Mr. Big Van Life says, in the UK, a dozen eggs today was £2.80 at Coop, at Co-op. Can we trust a website like Ninite for our downloads? Yes. Yes, you can. That thing is still updating. Oh my gosh. Why is this taking so long? All right, in the meantime, while we're waiting for this, what I hope is the last update to apply, and we reboot, the computer reboots, and we have the latest adrenaline drivers, then I'll run a Crystal Disk Mark on it, and we'll run a Prime 95 test on it, and that'll probably wrap up today's video. We're already at just over 2 hours. I like to keep these at around 2 hours. However, we're likely going to go to 3 hours today. So with that in mind, if you have any questions for me, this is the best time while we're waiting, and we're just essentially trying to stall for time here until this is done. This is the reality. If you were to buy a computer like this, or any new computer, the initial setup is to get those updates first. I highly recommend it. Don't just think you're going to take the machine out of the box, plug it in, and start using it. Strongly urge you not to do that. Go through this process. And if you buy a computer from me, I do all this for my customers. So they literally can just plug them in and start using them, because any updates they would be missing would be with just in the period of time an update would have come out during shipping. Shipping can sometimes take a week. So a week's worth of updates is nothing. Alan Lindos contributes $7.77 in Super Chat. He said, I guess I should gift my usual 777. Missed a few times. Sorry, Carrie. Hey, no reason to apologize. Thank you for your continued support. Oystein wants to know if I have any experience with Guardio. Not only do I not have any experience with it, I've never heard of it. I don't even know what that is. LRCX wants to know, I have an old version of Malwarebytes. Will it update to the latest version if I install it? I don't see any reason why you would install it only to turn around and download the latest version. Why not just download the latest version and save yourself the added step of installing an old version? Sounds like you're doing twice the amount of work. Does VLC work in OBS? Yes, VLC is considered a media source you can select in OBS. Thing one in the chat says, Carrie, is there an air cooler on the market that can handle the stock 13th gen 13900 CPU? I'm looking at a Noctua. Do I have any thoughts on that? Well, it depends on how you use the CPU. I mean, clearly, a Mugen 5 will work on a 13900 or 13900K. For that matter, even a 13900KS. The problem is, when you really start pushing the CPU hard, will the air cooler be able to keep up with it? I'm not a big fan of these 13900 chips, whether it's the K, non-K, KS, or F. They're just dumping more power into the chip. It's not really innovation. It's like coming up with a faster car by having it burn more fuel. That's not much in the way of intelligent engineering. Anybody can dump more power into something and consume more resources to get a little bit more out of the car or the computer. And this is what Intel has done on the 13th gen. It is not it's not ecologically friendly to the power grid, right? To the fact that these chips are consuming far more power and generating far more heat, rather than coming out with a new design of a chip that is more efficient. They're actually less efficient. The 13th gen 13900 family of chips is less efficient than the previous few generations of Intel chips. They're moving it in the wrong direction, in my opinion. I think we're going to look back at the 13900s and ask ourselves, what were we thinking when we're so aware? We're so aware. We always discuss carbon footprints and things of that nature and saving the planet. What were we thinking as a as a culture, as a public, to continue buying products that are sort of thumbing their nose at this idea. It's just more power. It's sort of like getting a car that has more power, but as a result, it's got terrible emissions, and people are buying it. I'm just not impressed. Now, the 13600, not so bad, but when we get into that really high-end i9 13 series, there's no ingenuity there. It's just throw more power at it. When we throw more power at it, it costs more to run the machine, and it's harder to cool. So to answer your question, will an air cooler work? It depends. For most people, when you ramp that CPU up under normal everyday tasks, the air cooler is going to spin up to full speed, and then when the CPU is done with that task, the air cooler will bring it back down, and it'll likely be okay. But if the way you're using the computer is you are pushing that CPU to its maximum for, hours at a time, you're going to want a liquid cooler for that, no doubt about it. It's sort of like you want the most powerful thing, but you don't want the most powerful cooler. They kind of go hand in hand. To buy one, you should fully expect to buy the other thing that matches it. In my opinion, any other reasonable person should very easily be able to conclude if you're buying at the high end of the chip, you also need to buy in to the high end of the cooler. And that's going to be liquid cooling. So with regards to like a Noctua DH15, something that's this giant air cooler, again, it's going to work to a certain extent depending on how you use the machine. Just because you have a car that has a top speed of 185 miles an hour doesn't mean you're ever going to hit that speed in the car. It depends on how you drive. Martin Hogg says, I'm just enjoying watching the precise timer in Acronis. Yeah. 7 minutes remaining. That's what it said for 20 minutes. Oh, now it's done. It just stated, yeah. I don't know why Acronis hasn't improved that over the years. It's always been that way. Trevor wants to know, what's the best PC case to buy that still has DVD drive support? Probably, in my opinion, a Corsair 110Q. I don't know. Maybe some folks in the chat room have some suggestions. Ron Barnish says his new PC is really helping his flight simulator. Oh, I bet. Flight simulators can, especially like Flight Sim 2020, can take up a lot of resources, video, RAM, and CPU. Taco says, I thought DVDs were dead. Well, there are people out there that have very large DVD libraries that might have a large investment of movies, and they want to be able to watch them. So, it may be more difficult, perhaps, to buy newer content on DVD. What about people that have an investment of content on DVD? What are they supposed to do? So they're not dead. They're just dying, would probably be more accurate. Morton says, I'm getting ready to take the wife to dinner. I will turn and back up the new laptop when I return home. Yeah, absolutely. Get that laptop updated. I wouldn't be in a rush to back it up. Make sure that you get the laptop set the way you like it. Like if you're going to put Microsoft Office on it, get it installed, get it activated, set up your wallpaper and your icons the way you like them, then make a backup of it. That's what I would recommend, and enjoy your dinner. Shamim recommends to Trevor the Fractal Design Core 2500 as the case that he thinks looks a lot like the 200R and can have the DVD drive. Mark Leibowitz said he's used a few Silverstone PS series cases. They're not bad to work with and easy on the budget, but not great for cable management. I agree, and the metal they use is kind of thin, but it's a computer case at the end of the day. They're very aggressively priced, but you get what you pay for. Sean McDermott said, you've tested a few mini PCs recently. Which would you consider the best performer? I think the GTR 6. I think I would say the GTR 6. Just all around. And the fact it's got 4 HDMI outputs is pretty cool. But it is the biggest mini PC. It's longer than all the others. So is that fair? You know, if you make it a little bigger, you could probably make it a little more powerful and give it better cooling. So is it fair to compare it? But it depends what you want to use it for too, right? Many of these for regular home user use are wonderful. They're great for doing the normal stuff people do, from surfing the web, checking your email, paying your bills online, jumping into Zoom, or watching YouTube videos, Netflix, all that. They all do a great job. Thing One contributes $10 via Super Chat and says, thanks for your sage wisdom, Carrie. Right on. Well, thanks for participating in the chat. And thanks for your questions and your contribution as well. Is this thing done updating yet, or what are we doing over here?
What about basil or oregano?
What about basil or oregano?
Yeah.
Not just sage?
Not just sage.
What about thyme? Don't have time? Why is this? There's something wrong here. I mean, for this to be taking this long, that's crazy. Please keep your computer on, it says. Well, we may not have time to run the tests on this. I might have to pick it up on another video because there's a part of me that just wants to shut this off so I can move on. You know, it's at some point, like if it stays like this in 2 hours, I'll know it's locked up. I mean, I am a computer tech, right? So I'm gonna just shut it off. There's no way it's be taking this long. This computer, if this was a 10-year-old computer, I could have a little more understanding for that, but something ain't right. So we'll see what happens here. I can't imagine I was interrupting much if that update was taking that long. Trevor said, I'm looking for a really large case, and all of those are mid-tower cases. Yeah, so people don't generally want the big cases. They're expensive to ship. They're very difficult to move around, to pick up. They're a pleasure to build in. I don't have any recommendations for a large case. I haven't used any in a long time other than the one we used on the Big Beast build, which was a Corsair 5000D, which is around $550 for that case. Martin wants to know if I still recommend Instant House Call for remote support. Yes, absolutely. In fact, links for Instant House Call are in the video notes below every video I make. Absolutely. Luke Greenia says, LOL, I am a computer tech, and then shuts it off. Too funny. Well, what I meant by that was if I break it, I know how to fix it, right? What am I worried about? If, warning, don't shut off your computer during the update, or, the system may be damaged. Your operating system may be damaged. Well, yeah, but I'm a tech, so if it's damaged, I can fix it. So what have I got to worry about? Let me go full screen on this again. And let me check. Because I'm a glutton for punishment, I want to see what Windows Update says now. Now that update's moving a little better. Okay, now we're getting somewhere, I think. I'll just keep an eye on that. John Williams says for a large computer case, look at the NZXT Phantom 820. Good suggestion there. NZXT makes some great cases. Dwayne Blackwater said the Corsair 7000D Airflow is a big case. There you go. Get some good suggestions coming in there. Starshine says only 339 days until Christmas. Oystein recommends the Corsair Graphite 760T as a big tower. And Craig in the chat room suggests the Be Quiet Dark Base 900 or 900 Pro Revision 2 is a full-size tower with a place for a DVD drive. Thomas Backenstow says, yeah, NZXT makes a great case. I have the NZXT that Carrie and Mitch built for me, and it's awesome. Yeah, he's got the little black and red one, the little micro ATX case. Not mini ITX, that's even smaller. Shamim mentions the Fantex P600S is also a good case to consider. Paul Kitching mentions the Corsair Obsidian 750D, if you can find one. Scott Hallinan wants to know, in my opinion, if I've noticed Windows 11 is any faster or snappier, or is it the same as Windows 10? I find it pretty much the same. Flipper Flop says he's going to bed, saying good night. Well, thanks for joining us. Sweet dreams. And hey, we're moving now. It's at 80. All right, 88%. Almost there. Boy, that's a heck of an update. This is a fast computer. It's not a fast internet connection, but the installing part of it shouldn't be based on my internet connection. It was downloading it, obviously took longer than it should have because of the slow internet here, but processing power of installing it, I'm still surprised it's taking that long. But at least it's progressing now. I guess I'll check my phone, see if I'm missing anything, since we're just kind of waiting on this darn update. Nothing. Not missing anything. All right, very good. And I think this finally finished. Yay. Pending a restart. Now everything should be back to normal. So those are your growing pains of your, out-of-box experience when you're setting up a new computer. None of this is unusual. It happens from time to time. And, did you turn it off and back on again? More often than not solves any of those new computer issues when you're setting things up. You'll see that that little update didn't stick around like it did before. The fan just cranked up here, and I'll get my flash drive ready because we're going to want CPU. Yeah, we'll look at CPU-Z. We'll look at the specs as being reported by CPU-Z. Crystal Disk Mark and Crystal Disk Info, so we can get information on the solid-state drive. And Prime 95, we'll see if this thing has any cooling issues when we put the pedal to the metal and just work the heck out of it for 15 or 20 minutes and see what kind of heat it generates. It's a very unrealistic test. Very few people would ever run a CPU that hard, that consistently for 20 minutes. But it does give me peace of mind that if it can survive that, it can probably survive any task we throw at it without any concern for overheating. So, with that in mind, we'll throw VLC on here. Speaking of that piece of software, that pretty much universally goes on every computer I build. And then we need, let's see, CPU Z, HW info, Crystal Disk Mark Portable, Crystal Disk Info, Prime 95, 26.6. Okay, that looks good. All right, CPU Z. See what numbers we get here. Yeah, that is our CPU. Little information about our main board and BIOS version. It says the BIOS comes from October. I don't know if there's a new BIOS version. Installed memory is DDR4. This is not DDR5 like the GTR6, I think, was DDR5. But the GTR6 is also twice the price of this, so got to keep that in mind too. And we're using, who's the memory maker? ASNT? I've never, oh, Samsung. All right, that's fine. That's good, actually. Better than fine. And in the graphics tab. And let's see. Out of curiosity, with that new Adrenaline driver, does it have an update on this version? Right here, it says up to date, right? I don't know if my camera's covering it, but right there. That's what I was looking for. Okay, maybe just something to do with that version from Windows Update. I have no idea. Or from the manufacturer. I don't know where it came from. Let's see. Crystal Disk Info. Let's see what the make and model is of the installed M.2 storage. Huh, I don't know who that is. CYX. Let's see how it performs. John Paul Bacon says, for AMD, DDR5 memory is only supported on the AM5 based platform, so none of the 5000 series CPUs, desktops or laptops will have DDR5. It's a little confusing, isn't it? That you'd think the 5000 series would require DDR5 with an AM5 with all those fives, but doesn't work that way, does it? Why are my numbers so low on this? Am I testing the flash drive? I am testing the flash drive. I should have taken the flash drive out. All right, let me stop this test. That's not right at all. All right, I don't know why that defaulted to D. That's really bizarre. Let's try this again. This time, let's test the speed of the internal M.2. Silly me. All right. I was like, what the heck is going on there? So that speed is very, very slow. That is a SATA speed. That's not an NVMe speed. I'd have to go back and look at those specs again. I am surprised that this would not be NVMe. So I think the next thing we're going to do is we're going to pop the back off of this, and we'll get close-up camera over here and take a look at what drive is physically installed in there. That's very interesting that they've used, because the price of a 512 gig solid state drive that is SATA or NVMe should be exactly the same price. So why wouldn't you get the faster one? And when I say faster, I mean 4 to 5 to 6 times faster. Like not just twice as fast, or not just a little faster. Multiple, at least 4 times faster, probably at a bare minimum. for the exact same price. That doesn't make sense. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stop this test right now because I don't want to take it any further until I get this resolved. I got to know why. We're going to shut this down. And then we're going to go back over to camera 1 and we'll go full screen here. And I can pull my flash drive from here, flip this over, and we'll unplug power because I don't want to mess with it with power plugged in. And we'll get close-up camera. There you go. Oh, those are some interesting screws. Okay, so under the lid, you can see these brackets. That's where you would mount a 2.5-inch drive, like a SATA drive. We only have what appears to be one M.2. This is our CMOS battery here. It does show it as SATA, not NVMe. Well, it's starting to make sense why this device is so affordable. I wonder if that will accept an NVMe drive or if it's SATA only. Let's see here. I guess our Wi-Fi card is underneath this. Yeah, and it looks like, well, I thought it said TP-Link, but that's not a P, that's an N. I don't know what that is, but that's the Wi-Fi adapter. This is only Wi-Fi 5, it's not even Wi-Fi 6, but these are very easy to change out. We can put a Wi-Fi 6E in there if we want to. These are our 2 memory modules here, and those are 8 gigs each, 3200 speed. This little connector right here, that's where you're going to connect that little SATA cable that I showed you earlier that was in the box if you were attaching a SATA drive. Would an NVMe drive work in there? Let me see. Of course I could read directions, but I'd rather just play around, have my own experience. I don't know what this drive is. It doesn't say anything on it. It's definitely keyed differently. I don't think that's going to fit. Oh, it does fit. Well, that's interesting. So nothing's preventing you from plugging an NVMe drive in. I should have an open NVMe drive I could throw in there just to experiment. Let me see. Should be around here somewhere. Where'd all my spares go? All right, I left some notes to myself. I pulled this drive and labeled it as a 500 gig Samsung in here. So a same size drive, but now this will be NVMe. We'll put that in there like this. I'll bring this down here like that. And then what I'll do is grab my little cloning tool which accepts NVMe or SATA-based M.2s, which is super convenient. And we'll take the old 512 SATA, we'll plug it in here. Now, if you haven't seen my review on this, there's no cover to it. It's made by Silverstone. It's the TS16. And this enables you to plug in NVMe or SATA M.2 for like drive recovery, data recovery purposes. Or, as we're going to use it as a cloning purpose, I'll plug it into the Type-C port up front. That, of course, is our original drive. And then I'm going to grab my Acronis Rescue Boot flash drive, which I have here somewhere. And you know what? I'll plug that one in right up front too. Now, how do I turn it on? I have to just keep it upside down. I'll hit the, I gotta plug it back in. Let me step around and find the power cable fell on the floor. I'm gonna grab that. And we'll plug it in right here. Okay, we'll fire that back up. And, all right, I'm gonna go back to camera 1, I think. Camera 1. Right there. Okay, you're clear. And let's see how. Oops. Oh, look at that. It booted right into Acronis. That means that the flash drive that or the NVMe drive I plugged in has no operating system on it. So I didn't have to tell it to boot to the flash drive because that was the only bootable thing it could boot to. So that was convenient. All right, let me go full screen on this so I can see what it's saying here. Let's see. We want to do tools and utilities, clone disk, automatic. Disk 2 is our source. No, I don't want disk 2 to be the source. That's the flash drive. Where's, oh, the little enclosure I've got here has a power button. I always forget to press the power button. So now that I've turned it on, Acronis should see it here. I'm gonna have to go back to the main page. Automatic, next, yep. There it is, SSD enclosure, next. Gotta love Acronis, it makes this so easy. And disk 1 is not initialized. That's the one the NVMe drive I just installed. Good for me for wiping it clean. So it's just like it would be brand new out of the box. And here we go. This shouldn't take very long. That might make a big, big world of difference in performance on this otherwise budget mini PC. And it doesn't make any sense to me, given that there's pretty much zero price difference from SATA drives to NVMe drives until you get into the larger, 2 terabyte and above capacities. Essentially, a 500 gig SATA M.2 and a 500 gig NVMe M.2 are essentially the same price. And in many cases, the NVMe drive is cheaper, if you could believe that. Look at Amazon, look at Newegg, look at the prices and compare them. You tell me. So this doesn't really make sense why all the components they've selected here are pretty good, except for that storage drive. If I had a criticism, apart from the location of the power button, I think that the SATA M.2 was a big mistake. Winston Liu has been a contributor now for 7 months, or a member rather, of our tech club. He says, many PCs are good for everyday computing with a 1 terabyte drive. Yeah, most people don't use more than 300 gigs in my experience, most home users. And this process won't take very long. It's just an operating system. Obviously, if someone had been using this computer daily for a couple of years, they'd have more data on it, and more data would take longer to copy. So this should only take a couple minutes. What is the Silverstone enclosure's model number? The TS16, TS, T like Tom, S like Sam, 16. I've got a video just going over the review of that. It's my favorite external enclosure because it's not designed to be a permanent housing. It's designed for someone like me, a technician, that needs to quickly pull data or do clones temporarily to replace an NVMe drive, to upgrade it, whether or not I put the source or the target in there, whatever, just adjust Acronis accordingly. And no screws to turn. It's completely toolless. Just pop it in place, do what you need to do, and you're done. And speaking of done, our Acronis copy is complete. Clone disk operation has succeeded. Okay, I click OK. All right, come back over here with the close-up camera and we'll show the close-up of what I'm going to do here next. We'll turn this off and we'll turn this one off. All right, come on over here. Now this is a little button that I forgot to hit, which is why initially Acronis didn't see this disk, which is our source. This is our SATA. I want to push that in, and so the light is red now and it's off. And I'm also going to hold the power button on the computer. We're going to hold that in until it shuts off. There it goes. I'm going to take out the Acronis Rescue USB. I'm going to unplug the Silverstone enclosure. Once again, you'll see the name of the enclosure right there on the side. Right there. If it'll focus. There it is. There's even a little QR code. If it'll focus, you could just scan the code with your phone. All right. Now, check this out. You can see the new drive I plugged in there is NVMe. Let's see if the system boots. I've just turned it back on. You see the red lights on. And let's go back over to the HDMI input. Okay, it says recovery. Your PC needs to be, oh, probably because we went from a SATA driver to an NVMe driver. Press escape for UEFI firmware settings. Let's see. We're good on camera. The close-up camera. Let me go full screen on this BIOS so I can read it. Okay, BIOS information, date and time. Yeah, it definitely supports NVMe. Well, obviously it saw the drive. So what we're having now is what we have is a driver-related issue because we've switched the controller from a SATA controller to an NVMe controller. And if I recall correctly, what we have to do is just boot Windows in safe mode. Let's see, F8 for startup options. Yeah, winload.efi. That's the issue. Press F8 for startup settings. Come on, it's not going to give it to me. F1 for recovery environment. It should be able to boot into safe mode. Once it boots into safe mode, if I can get it that far, it automatically loads the driver. And then once we've entered safe mode, we reboot it again and everything's fine. There's nothing we have to do. By entering safe mode, it does it for us. But it's not letting us get that far. Press F1, we tried F1, we tried F8, and escape gets us into the firmware again. Let's go back one more time into the firmware. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. And this is something we could have had Acronis deal with for us by using a tool called Universal Restore. Yeah, so this is definitely a driver-related problem. Nothing in the firmware is going to fix this. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't preventing boot up to that. But it's just showing the first boot option is NVMe. It is correct. So it is just a driver problem. And again, most of the time, all you have to do is boot Windows into safe mode. And it's just not letting us do that. Sometimes you can have Windows fail attempting to boot 3 times. Yeah, so what I'm going to need to do to address this back to camera 1. And if we clone it with a Universal Restore, I'm trying to remember. Let me go back. Back to full screen here. Shut this off. I just hold the power button in for about 10 seconds. The machine shuts itself off. Once again, no, I'm going to leave power hooked up here. I'm going to grab my Acronis Rescue Media. And I'm going to plug in my external drive. Turn that on. Turn this on. And then I should be able to press F8, I think. And hopefully that's booting off the flash drive. John Paul Bacon in the chat says, maybe when you turned on the external after Acronis was already up and running, it messed something up. No, I mean, I've been doing this a long time. It's just, it's a driver-related issue. It's really not a big deal. I should have thought of it. If we're upgrading an NVMe drive to an NVMe drive or a SATA drive to a SATA drive, we would not have this problem because we'd be using the same driver. But let me see here. Try and go into the BIOS and force it to boot to that flash drive first. I'm going to shut it back off. It's taking a while here. So force it off, and then we'll bring it back up here and see if we can enter the BIOS. And we'll force it to boot to the flash drive. And let's see, let me go full screen once again so I can read it. We're going to go all the way to the right, Boot override. I don't want the enclosure and I don't want the Samsung. Why is it not offering me the USB drive? We're going to change USB device. We'll make it boot option 1. This one I don't want used. Actually, I'll make that one, this one will be second. This one I'll disable. That one I'll disable. Whoops. I don't want a network boot. I think it was trying to boot off through the enclosure before. Now let's save and exit. And now it should boot off of my Acronis Rescue flash drive, I hope. Sometimes it's faster, especially on a new machine like this, to just put a Windows 11 flash drive in there and do a clean install and just put the drivers and updates on it. I was trying to take a shortcut here, but it does get a little bit tricky when we're changing the controller. And again, that's what the universal restore function is for with Acronis. So while I absolutely can figure out what this problem is, I think it's just faster for me to grab a Windows 11 installation drive, which I have around here somewhere. And let's just do a clean install on it, just so we can get it done today. All right, let's see if it boots correctly now to the Windows 11 boot media. That's better. And if you've been watching my channel, you know exactly what I'm going to do because I always do it the same way every time. Does this have Windows 10 Pro? I mean, Windows 11 Pro or Windows 11 Home? As long as I put the same version back on, it should automatically reapply the product key the first time I hit Windows Update. It seems like a lot just to get around a silly driver, but it's a very important driver. Without it, it can't read the data off the drive. So we'll let that install because, quite frankly, this will just be faster. All right, well, we're waiting. Time for another Gatorade. I have all these bottles of Gatorade that have like 2 swallows left in them because they got warm and I put them back in the fridge. Let's see, let me go back over to turning camera 1 back on. And I can make myself a bit smaller here so we can keep an eye. On our Windows 11 installation progress. Dwayne says you'll need your old product key. No, not anymore. Ever since Windows 10, you never need to enter a product key ever again. Windows 10 servers will remember your computer, regardless if you have a Microsoft account or not. And I've demonstrated this about 4 or 5 years ago in a video. I've demonstrated it at least 2 or 3 times. You absolutely will no longer need a Windows 10 or Windows 11 product key unless you change your motherboard. You'll see. Watch and learn. All right, that one's done. All right, I'll go for the next one that has 2 swallows left in it. All right, now because I've configured the BIOS to restart to the USB by priority, it has once again restarted Windows setup. I should probably change that into BIOS, but in the meantime, I'm going to just go ahead and shut the computer off because everything Windows 11 needs is already on the internal drive, so we no longer need the installation media. We're done with it. It can be put away. I normally just leave it in there because, but after your first reboot, you don't need the Windows media of Windows 10 or Windows 11. Everything it needs to, when it restarts that first time, everything it needs to finish the install has been copied over. And normally the BIOS would select booting to the drive first with the USB second, and normally the drive would be completely clean with no operating system on it. So it just, on your first installation, automatically boots to the USB the first time, and on the reboot, now that the internal drive is bootable, the reboot then boots from the internal drive from that point forward. And to have it override that to boot to the USB, we'd have to go into the BIOS or select one of the function buttons at startup to override the default boot settings. So everything it's done is exactly what it's supposed to do. Yeah. But that little upgrade right there probably makes a pretty good difference in performance on this machine. This machine was clearly being held back by using this old SATA drive, and it just seems like a strange decision they made to put that in there, especially when the cost is the same. Patrick wants to know about cloning again with a Cronus Universal Restore that would put in the correct driver. Yes, that's what I was going to do. I was going to do that, but having some issues with the Cronus booting correctly, and I don't think I have Universal Restore on that Acronis rescue disk. I'd have to make another rescue disk with Acronis Universal Restore selected, and the amount of time that's going to take, I'd rather just do a fresh install of Windows 11. So we are live and we can get done with it. I thought we'd be done at 4 o'clock. We've already gone over my 3-hour, I thought I like to keep the videos at 2 hours, right? And I thought, well, we'll probably go another hour, and clearly we're not done yet. So I'm not going to go through all the updates again. In fact, I should have unplugged the internet cord or Ethernet cable. It just occurs to me now. All right, let me go full screen on my side here so I can read what this says. All right, same things we did from before. US, skip. Don't have internet. Continue with limited setup. I'm going to put the same name in, although you don't have to. AceMagician. Next, empty password. Turn off everything but location. Accept. All right, and that's how fast it is to install Windows 11. Now, as soon as I go to Windows Update, which of course the machine's going to do on its own in the background once we get to the desktop, it will recognize this motherboard. It'll recognize it via its serial number, and it will reassign the product key that it was activated with automatically. If we change the motherboard out, we have to buy a new product key, usually. Kurt Schlegel with a $10 super chat says, great show today, Carrie. Thank you. Well, thanks, Kurt. Thanks for joining us today, and thanks for your contribution. Okay, so we're up and running. Now I can plug the Ethernet cable back into it and give it access to the interwebs. See all these, likely because I didn't have the internet plugged into it. All right, here we go. Windows Update. And we'll check for updates. So right now, if we wanted to check the status of our activation, I would right click. I would go to System. And up here, I'll just type in activation. See if Windows is activated. Right now, it says the activation state is not active. And we're not going to change a product key. We're not using a product key at all. What we are going to do is do our first round of Windows updates. And once it completes the first round and it has us restart, then when we check our activation status, you'll see it's automatically reactivated, auto-magically. Now, if this had Windows 11 Home on it, and now I've put Windows 11 Pro, then it will not activate without a Windows 11 Pro product key being provided. And the reverse of that is true. If it had Windows 11 Pro activated and we put Windows 11 Home on it, it will not activate without a proper license code for that product. So since it had Windows 11 Pro, I'm sure it had Windows 11 Pro, right? Isn't that what the Amazon page said? I can't remember either. Yeah, according to the Amazon page, it comes with Windows 11 Pro. Yeah. Well, that's moving along pretty good there. Yeah, remember this is a fresh, clean install starting from scratch, just because I want to see that the NVMe drive does in fact make a significant difference in performance. Now, this is a budget Samsung NVMe drive, so it's not going to do the peak performance that, you know, if I put a Samsung 970 Evo in there, which I can. But just for the sake of experimentation, just want to make sure that this works and see what difference it makes in the performance. Scott Hallinan says, Carrie, what is your favorite onion, red or normal onions. I do not like onions at all. However, I like onion rings.
Medallions.
And I would use Vidalia onions, sweet yellow onions. They're delicious in onion rings. I will not have them on a pizza. I won't have them on a burger or a hot dog. I despise them. But I like onion rings. And I don't like the onion rings if they're made with red onions. That's it's too strong, too powerful.
Red onions are supposed to be
Those Vidalia onions, though,
medallions are great.
yeah. But they're only in season a couple months out of the year. Matt Olaf says, sorry, I must leave you now. Good luck with the mini PC. Oh, no luck necessary. It's just a little minor upgrade. It's not a big deal. I was just wanting to measure the performance. And when I saw the benchmarks on that SATA drive, I'm like, what do we do? Go back in time 6 years? I don't want that. More than 6 years, about 10 years. No, not about 6. All right, is this ready for a reboot yet? What's it doing? Yeah, it still has a ways to go. I'll keep an eye on it. All right, any other questions for me? We're just gonna bide our time here, waiting for these first round of updates to be done. We'll restart. Then I'm going to show you Windows is activated. It's already gotten its product key reassigned to it from the Windows servers because it recognizes the serial number. And that way you don't have to choose to believe me. You can actually witness it. What's happening now is clearly a video driver. When you see the screen blank out like that, that is typically an indication that your video driver's been disabled so that it can be replaced and then re-enabled again. And that's why your video goes away and then comes back on. You need a video driver to see the video. And you can't change a video driver that's in use. It's like trying to change a flat tire on a car that's in motion. Old Man 55 in the chat says, thanks, Kerry, for showing that both SATA and NVMe work in this PC. Andy Kane wants to know if I think resetting the CMOS would help. No, there's the CMOS, the BIOS in this is relatively basic. So yeah, we have a driver issue. When you clone a drive from one controller to another controller, it's very reasonable to understand why the driver for the SATA controller isn't working to boot the NVMe driver or the NVMe media that needs an NVMe driver. And so Acronis Universal Restore solves this problem, but you have to make the Universal Restore media, which I could do, but it would just, I figured, take longer for me to do that than to just do a clean install. But nothing to do with the BIOS. Machine went to sleep on me there. We're moving along. Shamim wants to know if anyone has any experience with ADATA drives. I do. I've installed many ADATA drives. And I still have a lot of older flash drives from ADATA. Probably have some in this drawer that are 10 years old. I've never had an ADATA drive go bad. They typically aren't leaders in performance, but they can be very good value for the money. Like their XPG series, the 8100 XPG from ADATA. I think I've used about a half dozen of those. You don't get any like supportive software that's useful, like Samsung Magician does, but most end users don't use it anyway. Carrie, what is AMD Adrenalin? What does it do? That's what Mark Gaines wants to know. So the Adrenalin software is effectively your chipset drivers. And if you have a built-in graphics card in your CPU, it provides your graphics card drivers and allows you to optimize those drivers for certain use case scenarios such as gaming, where it optimizes the settings to give you the best performance for that task. And AMD, what did they used to call it? They gave it a different name. It's called Adrenalin now, but it's essentially just your chipset drivers. And they put it into an interface that allows you to optimize those drivers for certain uses of the computer, primarily gaming. Let's see if there's like a Wikipedia on that that might explain it better. Designed to provide you with a clean, modern, and easy-to-use interface where you can quickly access the latest software features, game stats, performance reports, driver updates, and much more, all from one convenient location. But essentially, if you have an AMD-based computer, you absolutely want the AMD Adrenalin software on it to get the best performance out of it. The computer will work without it, but it'll work better with it. Vicky Singhai says Catalyst. Yeah, it was AMD Catalyst. Thank you. Yeah, now it's AMD Adrenalin now. They've replaced it. Dan Nilsson said he had a bad experience with SK Hynix SSDs. Well, SK Hynix bought out Intel's SSD department and all the products. So those SK Hynix NVMe drives are now Intel based. Now, I think I've used one or two SK Hynix, and I've got nothing but great respect for them. I've never had a problem with them. But the reason I lean towards Samsung is that Magician software. It's just make sure your drive's firmware is up to date. Make sure that all the stats on the drive, how much life is left in it, how much has been written to it, what its performance is. It's a very handy little utility, and I don't know of any other manufacturer that makes a utility to that puts all this in one package. I've seen utilities from other NVMe drive manufacturers that are, a portion of what the Samsung Magician does. So, yeah. Duncan, he mentions the AMD Ryzen Master software is for overclocking the GPU and etc. And you'll see that I use that on the Threadripper builds. Keeps falling asleep on me. I just pushed a button in my OBS that I didn't mean to push. I gotta figure out how to unpush it. What did I do? Oh, I guess I just a double click. Silly me. All right. All right, I have the option to restart now, so I'm going to do that. Taco says, should we trust the cloud rather than our cheap hard drives? Every big corporation in the world uses the cloud. It's not about trusting your local drives. It's about what happens in a fire or a theft. It's about having the data, if it's important to you, in another location at the same time, having a copy of that data out of the building. And the cloud is a very convenient way to do that. I used to advise people, for example, take a copy of your backup drive or have multiple backup drives and use one of them, one of your backup drives, put it in a safe deposit box at the bank. Well, few people use safe deposit boxes anymore. They were a thing, but now, look, safe deposit boxes can get broken into. The cloud can get broken into, but mostly the reason why your data wouldn't be safe on the cloud is that you chose a really poor password and it's your own fault. That's the bottom line. As brutal as it sounds, most end users are their own worst enemy for security. It's sort of like selling you the most expensive burglar alarm system. It's the most effective burglar alarm system. And then somebody knocks on your door and you invite them in the house. You know, you've just bypassed your whole burglar alarm system. Could be somebody claiming to be from the utility company, and they're actually not. But you know, they've got the shirt and the badge and you believe them and you invite them in, and you've completely bypassed your whole home security, which defeats the purpose of having it. So the cloud is in fact quite safe if you're using reputable cloud providers, whether that's Google, Microsoft, Amazon Web Services, as long as you take the responsibility of putting on two-factor authentication. It should be safer than it is in your own home, because that will all be encrypted. Yours backup is likely not encrypted. And if somebody were to break into your house and steal it, if your house were to be flooded, if you were to accidentally drop the drive on the ground or somebody knocked it over, didn't tell you they knocked it over, maybe they were just cleaning one day, cleaning the area and knocked it over, picked it up, put it back, they wouldn't think to mention it, it's a knick-knack. They don't realize how fragile hard drives are. The cloud is much, much safer than your own home, generally speaking. All right, let's go back to this computer and let's check our activation status. Right-click on the Start menu and go to System, and then we'll type in Activation. See if Windows is activated. Not yet. Not yet. So I'm going to go back to Windows Update. Surprised, I was expecting it to be activated, but it's going to happen. It's possible that the reason it hasn't happened yet is because we don't have the chipset drivers installed. So this may actually be the reason right here. So let's finish those downloads and we're going to try one more time and see if it makes a liar out of me. But it's not letting me. There it goes. Or maybe not. Updates failed. It's obviously doing something in the background. I'm still curious if maybe that happened yet. System. Activation. Settings. See if Windows is activated. We're still not there. I wish there was a way to push that. It will just happen automatically. And then I just closed it. I go back in there. Now, I will say this. In a scenario where for some reason it doesn't activate like it should, the reason could be that we're using a different version of Windows 11, like an OEM version versus a retail version. And because we still have the original drive here in the enclosure, I can always pull the key anyway. Shouldn't have to though. It normally just takes care of it by itself. So that, now it's saying it's up to date, which was a lot faster than it was prior, which makes me wonder. I don't see the Adrenaline software installed either. So AMD Adrenaline, and then we're going to go to search box. And this was a, what I say it was 5600U, I think is what I said. 5600U. Oh, I guess I have to go here first. Why am I not finding it now? Am I typing the wrong chip number in there? $5600U. So that's what I typed, right? 5600U. 5600U. No, drivers. Support. There's what I want right there. All right, we're going to download that one more time. We'll install that. We'll give it every opportunity to reactivate itself here. Okay. John Kennedy said, I'm not digging this computer. This is a budget computer, John. I mean, you're looking at a $328 computer. And for $328, you're getting the power supply, the case, the motherboard, 16 gigs of RAM, a 500 gig SATA storage. You're getting the CPU and the cooler. You've got the ability to hook up to 3 monitors simultaneously at 4K. I think it's pretty good value at that price point. Now, if you want to compare that to the $600 or $700 mini PCs, I don't know that that's a fair comparison, because we can buy 2 of these for the cost of one of those. And then suddenly, if each one can do 3 monitors, now we can do 6 monitors, right, with 2 of them. And then the other ones, the most they'll do is 4. So you really are somewhat getting what you pay for. In this case, I think you're getting more than what you're, like if you were to build this as a desktop computer with the same specs, there's no way you're going to do that at the $300 price point. I'm not even sure you could get it done at $500. So you got to adjust your expectations according to how much you're spending. And there's a point where if you're expecting too much, but you're spending so little, you're not being reasonable. If you're that demanding, expect to pay more. By the time, let's say we were to buy this at $328, put a 2 terabyte NVMe in there, that's going to set you back about $180, $150. And then if we change the RAM to go to 32 gigs of RAM, that'll set us back another $100. So now we've added another $250, and now we're at $578. Let's just say, plus sales tax, which puts us right into the ballpark of the other machines that already sell that way without having to do all that work. So, food for thought. Sarge Tech says, what's not to like? This is a bargain. So what I'm saying. I think it really is. I'm not saying it's the best computer money can buy, but it may be the best computer you can buy for the money. Maybe. All right, let's see if I can get that driver installed now. We're not seeing a big world of difference, real world performance difference between the SATA drive and the NVMe drive in the things that we've been doing so far. This extraction still seems like it's taking a long time. I'd be very curious when we run Crystal Disk Mark on it, what kind of numbers we're going to get. So once we've installed this, it'll require a reboot. We'll check once again, see if it's activated on its own. If it's not activating on its own, I'm missing something that's different. I need to put the old SATA drive back in it, verify it is in fact Windows 11 Pro, and what edition it is. I might be installing a different edition. This is the OEM install. If I want to keep an OEM install on it, I probably will have to put a Windows 7, 10, or 11 key. Any of those should activate Windows 11. It will definitely tie it to the motherboard anytime I reinstall using the same version of Windows, the OEM version. A retail version would be different, and there's a couple other different, you've seen the options when they start Windows 11. It says, which version of Windows 11 do you want? And it asks that when I tell it that I don't have a product key, because normally your product key makes that determination. It doesn't have to ask you that. So you do have to have a bit more control and understanding of the operating system if you're doing it the way I do it, which is how professionals do it. And I just don't know what version the manufacturer put on here. But yeah, you don't have to re-enter a Windows 10 or a Windows 11 product key on the same motherboard once you've activated it, even with no Microsoft account. And if you look in my video library, I've demonstrated it. I'm a little surprised, but I'm missing something, or I haven't given it enough time. But it should happen after the first Windows Update visit. There goes our video driver. And we'll restart. And because the video is running late, I'm not going to do the Prime 95 test on it. At this point now, I just want to finish what I've started in this regard, and we can come back in a future video and sort of follow up. And I can work on some things offline just to take a little bit more time with it and not feel so rushed like I am. I feel rushed on a live video because I'm trying to cover a lot of material, and there's just not enough time for me to do it all. At least not in one video. So things like this, like why isn't that automatic activation happening? I need to look up what the differences are. There's something different. Okay, so that's good. Let me grab my flash drive with Crystal Disk Mark on it. Let's try that. I don't want to see 3-digit numbers. I want to see 4-digit numbers. So again, this isn't the fastest. Actually, it's not bad. So we've increased it by 3,000. We were just over, like the 3498 that you're seeing, we were at like 524, if you recall. Look how much faster that is. 6 times faster, 5 times faster, and it effectively costs the exact same amount of money than the drive that was in there. What a shame that they sort of crippled the machine by putting that drive in there. So if you're considering buying one of these, just be aware, if I was you, I'd be replacing that internal SATA drive with an NVMe drive. And as far as cloning it, just keep in mind that you are changing the drive controller from SATA to NVMe. So you need a piece of software that can do that, like a Cronus Universal Restore. I'm sure Macrium Reflect can do it. Or since it's a brand new computer anyway, just reinstall Windows fresh and clean. That would be my advice. Or if you're the average ordinary user that wants to use this for like a streaming machine in a home theater PC situation, there's nothing wrong with the older, slower drive. It's more than enough for streaming, way more than enough. I think people put an emphasis on this data transfer speed because those people are enthusiasts. Your web browser is really not going to open any faster. Your internet's not going to be any faster. And your boot time isn't really going to be any faster, honestly. It's just milliseconds of difference. Where it starts to add up is when you're doing difficult tasks. When I say difficult, I mean complex tasks that require a lot of resources, like video rendering. If I'm editing a video and I want to render it out, having a slow drive in there is going to make that render take longer for most rendering software. It depends on the software, right? Cyberlink Power Director versus, I don't know, DaVinci Resolve. I mean, DaVinci Resolve would bring a machine like this to its knees. Heck, it brings a machine like that to its knees, quite frankly. It's a very resource-intensive application. This machine will do it, but you're going to have a lot of patience. This is really intended as a budget machine, clearly by its price. And at the end of the day, I think it's a good value, especially while they've got that $50 coupon, because this is normally a $400 machine. So they're knocking off almost $75. So that's a significant discount. Now, as you can see, our write speed's a little bit slower than our read speed. We're at just under 2,000. And that's typical of these lower end NVMe drives, but still way better than what was in there. So I think with that, oh, I wanted to check the activation one more time. I don't think it's activating. It should have done it by now if it was going to do it. And that part I'll have to look into. There's a difference that I'm missing, and I'll just have to do a little research on that. Pay closer attention so I can identify what the difference is. I'm suspecting it's the OEM version of Windows I'm installing versus what the manufacturer. Most manufacturers use an OEM version though, but I'd have to put the old drive back in it and take a look at the build number and such and the version of Windows 11. Likely that's where the problem is. It has to be exactly identical for it to automatically reassociate your product key and reactivate. And Windows 10's been doing this since it came out. System activation. Yeah, saying it's not active. Interesting. And that means the product key was not automatically reassigned. So one of the things I can do is, well, there's a couple solutions to this. Because let's face it, this can happen, because it just has. Let me go back to camera one. All right, so a couple of ways I can get around this is putting this drive back in, make sure it is in fact Windows 11 Pro, and I can pull the product key from it. There's a script you can download if you Google, where to find your product key. It's in the registry. And then I can take a picture of that with my phone or write it down. I don't like writing them down because 8s and Bs and 0s and Qs, they all look alike. So I like to get a nice picture with my phone. Then I'll put this drive back into it. And if it's the same Windows 11 Pro to Windows 11 Pro, when I put that activation code in, it should reactivate because the motherboard didn't change. If it doesn't activate, if it says the product key is not valid, that means there is a difference in the versions. In which case, I can go to VIP CDK deals and I can buy a Windows 10 Pro key. They're cheaper than the Windows 11 Pro keys, but a Windows 10 Pro will activate Windows 11 Pro. So why would you spend more for the Windows 11 Pro key? I have no idea why. Because Windows 7 Pro will also, Windows 7 and Windows 8 Pro keys will activate Windows 10. They should, in theory, also activate Windows 11. Now, the reverse is not true. Using a Windows 11 key to activate an older operating system of the same Pro version or home version likely will not be valid. But to go forward, since they're all free upgrades, those keys should work. I can take a Windows 7 Pro key from an old computer and use it to activate Windows 10. And if I can use that to activate Windows 10, and Windows 11 is a free upgrade to 10, that means all Windows 10 keys work on Windows 11. And since Windows 7 and 8 keys work on Windows 10, they should also work on Windows 11. So if you have an older computer laying around that still has the sticker on it, yeah, you can reuse that Windows 7 Pro or Windows 8 Pro key to activate Windows 10 or 11 Pro. And the same is true with Home. You cannot go from Home to Pro with the same key. You can't go from Pro to Home with the same key. Those are entirely different keys. So could save you some money. Daco said, I would have lost it 2 hours ago. Oh, I've never seen one of these before, right? If this was like, if I had a box of these to configure for a company, which is what I used to do, and I'm just constantly just putting the same machine up, doing all the same things, yeah, it would be very tedious. But having this as a new experience, I'm really enjoying it. It doesn't bother me. I'm a little surprised, but not a big deal. Carrie, what's the difference between the AceMagician AM06 and the B-Link i5? The specs are all completely different. Yeah. I think if you look at the video I did reviewing the B-Link i5 and look at the number of ports it has, the amount of RAM, the type of RAM, the amount of storage. I'm pretty sure the B-Link is all using NVMe storage. The B-Link costs more money. I think the B-Link has a faster processor, I think. The video on this one, AMD's built-in graphics tends to be better than Intel's built-in graphics, except if this is an older model AMD chip and it's a newer model Intel chip, then the Intel graphics are probably better. I don't have the specs memorized, but the B-Link sells for more money because you're getting more. Again, I don't think it's a fair comparison because the B-Link is more mid-range and this is more budget. I don't want to say low end, but it's budget. The B-Link is not a budget, it's more money. Dwayne wants to know if I could have downloaded the NVMe drivers before swapping the drives. Because there's only one M.2 slot in here, there'd be no way for me to activate them. As far as I know, no, I don't think I can. If I had a second NVMe drive in there, a second M.2 slot rather, and I put the NVMe drive in, then I could have loaded the. See, the drivers for the most part will load automatically. So just by having the second internal M.2 slot and plugging an NVMe drive in it, that would load the driver in that version of Windows. But it doesn't mean that NVMe drive would then be bootable. But I'd be able to access it, read and write to it, and everything else. Then if I wanted to clone from the internal M.2 to the other internal M.2, because it already had the NVMe drivers, that likely would have worked. But booting from USB requires, again, that's a different controller. It's a USB controller, which is not NVMe and it's not SATA. So wanting to boot from USB is a bit trickier, at least as far as Windows goes. It's going to be slower, but it also is a little bit more complicated in that you have to put the driver in manually, but it's entirely possible. John Williams wants to know if there's a workaround for Windows 10 Home to Pro. I can't understand why anybody who has Windows 10 Home would ever want Windows 10 Pro. I think anybody who upgrades their computer from a home version to a pro version is wasting their time. There's absolutely no benefit to the vast majority of users to have the pro version. What is it you would do with pro that you're not doing with home? That's the part I don't understand. Now, Vicky says they use BitLocker. I've never met a person that's a home user ever use BitLocker or even know what BitLocker is. But yes, if you're somebody who wants to use BitLocker, you would see a benefit from Windows 10 Pro. But most people don't. The vast majority of computer users do not use BitLocker. So I think, if you're not using it anyway, what's the point? You're not going to gain any benefit from Windows 10 Pro. If you're already running Windows 10 Home on your computer, you likely aren't missing anything. You could also use a third-party encryption software if you wanted to. You don't have to use Windows. Does the home version of Windows have a limitation on how much RAM it can see? It used to, but I don't believe it has that anymore. I think Windows 10 Home, let's Google that. Windows 10 Home RAM limit. Maximum RAM support in Windows 10 Home 64-bit is 128 gigs of RAM, and in Pro you can go up to 512 gigs of RAM. How much RAM do you have? Most people don't use more than 32. Anything over what you use is wasted money. So you can waste your time and waste your money going from home to pro, and then you can waste your time and waste your money to upgrade to more RAM that you aren't using, which is no benefit to you whatsoever. So, it's your money and it's your time. Have at it. If you're just somebody who just likes to have more, regardless of whether or not it's reasonable or practical, just a way to justify spending your money. I mean, don't let me get in your way, but I've never met a customer who has 128 gigs of RAM. I've installed 128 gigs of RAM twice in my life. And even then, Windows 10 Home will see that. The Big Beast build, I think we put 256 gigs of RAM in, so we had to use Windows 10 Pro. But we also had Windows 10 Pro level hardware, not just the RAM, but the motherboard, the CPU, all of that was super high end. So Windows 10 Home would not be ideal in a $10,000 computer. Just likely that a Windows 10 Pro is not ideal in a $500 computer, except in corporate environments. But hey, if you want to upgrade it, have at it. But you will see you're just a waste of time. Nothing's going to be any different for you. And again, with the exception of people that would want to use BitLocker, but those people are few and far between. William Lynn says, according to Google, Windows 10 Pro can go to 2 terabytes of RAM. Yeah, I don't know how you'd get the 2 terabytes, but there you go. Sarge Tech said, some people have the logic, if it's my money, I'll waste it if I want to. Well, of course you can. But I do like to be practical, right? And if I think, for example, changing the SATA drive, it's 500 gigs, to an NVMe drive of 500 gigs is a reasonable thing to do. To me, I think it's a pretty significant performance difference when we're going from 500 megabytes a second to 3,000, right? But when it's making no performance difference to add more RAM because you're not using it, you're just wasting your money. Or to go through the hassle of going from Windows 10 Home to Pro, which is a hassle, just so you have no difference whatsoever, other than you're going to see the word Pro, when you look in your system properties. That's likely the only thing you will achieve. So it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. I just don't see where your payoff is. I see where you're spending your money and your time, but what you're getting in return is, for the most part, nothing. So, anyway, food for thought there. I guess that'll wrap up for today's video. We're going on 4 hours now, so that's enough for me today, and probably enough for you guys too. But thanks for hanging out with me in the chat room and joining me on this little journey of exploration of this new AceMagician computer here. I don't know that you can find a mini computer that isn't a Raspberry Pi, which is going to be very limited in performance at this price range. So if you're looking for a very inexpensive mini PC that you can use for basic web tasks, email, online bill pay, Zoom meetings, throw a web camera, you're good to go. Something small, doesn't take up much room. You want a home theater PC to stream Netflix or Plex server, Kodi, whatever. This is overkill for that, quite frankly. If you have children, they need to do remote school work, things like that. This is not a gaming computer. And I've seen graphics cards that sell for 4 times more than you can buy this computer for. So in any event, if you keep your expectations reasonable based on what the price is, I think it's a really good deal. Just understand what to expect and you should be a happy customer. And again, when you buy from Amazon, you have that peace of mind knowing that if it doesn't meet your need for any reason, you can return it within 30 days and get a full refund. And if you do buy one of these or you have one, please share your experience, positive or negative, and let us know why. And that may help other viewers who relate more to your situation than perhaps the way I'm explaining it. And Brian Larson just contributed $2, and he says, thanks for the peek inside, Carrie. Yeah, they're all pretty much the same on the inside. Some will have 2 M.2s, but other than that, they're all pretty much the same. A shout out and a thank you once again to the folks who've contributed during today's broadcast. So that includes, where's my list? Kurt Schlegel, Winston Liu, again, Thing One, Alan Lindas, Samuel Kowalski, Angel again, Oystein in Norway, Chris Johnson, Stan Ristoff, Elijah 52 Dickens with a $20 super chat. I don't think I shouted that one out. My apologies, Elijah. Thank you for your contribution earlier. Thing One again, Planet Cryos, Stan Ristoff, Kevin Dara, John Jack Wilson, Stan Haristoff again, Planet Cryos again, our good friend Buster, Peter Laycock watching us in Scotland, Frankie B, Brad 3514, and of course Luke Greenia for the earlier PayPal contribution, and Avery Ramstor, and that Amazon gift card that came in from Mortant 210. 12, is it Mortant 210 or 1210? Okay, now I need my glasses. I just say Mortant 1210. Thought it was 1210. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I will follow up with this. I'll let you know what happens with the activation. If I discover a difference, there must be a difference in the OS version somewhere. And yeah, and if you have any questions about the unit, just leave them in the comments below the video, and I'll do my best to provide the answers for you. In the meantime, thanks for hanging out with me. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Have a safe, happy weekend. Thanks to Camera Girl, of course, for the close-ups. And thanks to Mitch Morrison for the dad joke of the day. And we'll see you all very, very soon. Members only Mondays, 1 o'clock p.m. Phoenix time for members of the Tech Club. That's every Monday, 1 o'clock Phoenix time. And for everybody in the public, every Friday at 1 o'clock, I am live. As with regards to Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, sometimes I broadcast, sometimes I don't. It just kind of depends on what my workload is for my day job of actually working in the computer field. So I will broadcast as time permits on those days, but I have permanently scheduled Mondays and Fridays, so you guys will always know that I am live for members only on Mondays at 1 o'clock Phoenix time, and in general worldwide on every Friday at 1 o'clock Phoenix time. Thanks for watching. We'll see you all very, very soon. Until next time, bye for now.